Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is brought to you by, well, you. If you want to learn how to support our show, go to patreon.com/laststandmedia. Greetings and salutations. Welcome back to Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast. This is episode number 181. My name is Colin Moriarty. I'm joined as always by my son, Chris Raygun, invoking his Delson Rowe look today. How are you today, my friend?
I'm well. I'm excited. I'm seeing Spider-Man later today, which I don't normally get excited for Marvel movies, but Willem Dafoe, Alfred Molina, I can't help but be excited. Just trying to avoid the internet because
right.
There's always going to be some asshole.
Oh, totally, dude.
Even when I get there, I feel like while we're waiting, I'm going to have like Pantera like blasting in my ears just to avoid hearing any like some asshole walking out of the theater is just like Snape is here for some reason. I'm like,
that's exactly what I was going to say. Was I vaguely remember that happening during Harry Potter? Didn't people do that where they would like walk out of the movie and say, you know, like something happened if the people weren't familiar with it? Or I think with Star Wars they did that as well.
Yeah,
people walking out doing dickish things. I don't understand that, because I've told the story before, but there was a dude that ruined The Killing for me, that random AMC show, and I was so mad.
I remember the story.
So mad. I just felt like it was so outrageous that he did that. And I told you about how I plotted for 2 years to ruin The Last of Us for him, famously. That's what and then I just was like, I couldn't do it. Like at the end of the day, I just couldn't do it. And like I got in my head, rent free for sure. I mean, that dude was in my head, and ever since then, I've just been really cautious because I don't understand why people do that to other people. And obviously, in the community, people were doing that with The Last of Us Part 2, which was shitty as well. So I'm glad that you've been able to avoid things so far.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah, I'm excited to see. I've been seeing different opinions. I don't know who to trust, and it's a superhero movie, so it can't be that deep.
Yeah, I'm sure it'll be fun at the very least.
Yeah, I like the idea. The whole premise sounds very neat to me. All right. Well, welcome, Chris, as always, and Dustin Furman, executive producer. What is going on here? Someone's alarm's going off?
I thought it was mine for a second, and I think it's Christopher.
Well,
Christopher, your alarm.
That I don't know why he can't hear because he's trying to see. He's straddling the line here. There you go. Okay.
Hey.
I usually put it on Do Not Disturb, but I forgot.
No, it's all good. I was going to say that I wanted to wait until you were back on the headphones. That noise, I hate that particular noise because it startles something in me, like that alarm sound specifically.
Yeah,
that particular tone.
Something is cosmically wrong. It drills into the very like the apest parts of your brain. It says bananas are gone. Go up in tree.
Right.
You know?
Exactly.
Dude,
yeah.
When I was in high school, I loved this. I asked my parents for a CD alarm clock so it would play music. This was before. It wasn't before smartphones, but I don't know. I wanted the CD alarm clock. And then I soon realized after I got one that any song that was played when you first wake up instantly becomes a song you hate. Yeah. So it's a terrible product overall. Don't wake up to music. Terrible idea.
Yeah.
I once in college, I had a clock radio that had a CD player in it, and I put 311's Transistor in it as my alarm. And I'm such a light sleeper that the CD player engaging to like turn on would wake me up, and I was like,
dude, me too.
You know,
yeah.
And then I'd be like, all right, Transistor's about to start. I guess I'll get up now. As opposed to Transistor just starting, but I digress. Dustin, it's good to see you. Are you ready to go? We're about to go on vacation.
Yes,
for a few weeks.
Yeah,
fun.
Ben and I have been just working ahead. I was rendering all kinds of stuff yesterday.
We've been crunching a little bit.
Little bit,
yeah,
but not crazy.
No.
And it's for, I feel like if you're crunching ahead in order to take a bunch of time off, that it's fine. It doesn't bother me. Obviously, it's not exactly comparable to some more major situations. But other than that, Adobe has been playing nice with me. I should not say that out loud because it will mean that my computer will promptly explode next time I try to export something. But the only bad thing is I recorded my mailbag that goes live on Christmas Day. And for some reason, the last 10 minutes of video are just not present. So, and I'm like, I'm not going to re-record this for that 10-minute. I have the audio.
Yeah, so just put up a little thing, it says that.
There's a nice surprise that I've put in for that last 10 minutes. Don't expect too much, but I just put in 10 uncut minutes of me exposed. No, of something you should look forward to.
Holy shit.
It's cute. It's very nice.
Cool, man. Well, yeah, I appreciate everyone's hard work getting everything done. We have to buy the time for ourselves because we never miss a week. And so don't be afraid. Fear not. This episode 181 will be followed by 82, 182 next week, and 183 the week after, and so on and so forth. So we've already recorded those episodes. They will go live. Sacred Symbols Plus will go live. Defining Duke will go live. Defining Duke Ultimate and Knockback. Everything's going live. Nothing will be interrupted. No interruptions for you, dear listener, dear viewer. And of course, you can support us over on Patreon, patreon.com/laststandmedia to get early ad-free access to all of that. Of course, exclusive access to Sacred Symbols Plus, our twice weekly supplement to this show, where we do a lot of review discussions and spoiler casts and interviews and things of this nature. Just had Rick Hogue on. I think that will go live right after this one goes live, right? Because no, that one already went live.
That one's already live, yeah.
Right. I'm thinking of the one that we're waiting for that one to go live publicly. Also, the one with Sandeep Rai, Vita Expert, that one's live for everyone as well. But we have Doki Doki Literature Club, of course, coming up. I think, did Call of Duty go live yet?
That's going live on Saturday. So cool. Very soon.
Yeah, soon. So we have a lot of different fun things going on over there. A bunch of mailbags. You're going to get a Christmas mailbag from Dustin, apparently, which is exciting. We'll be back next year with obviously a bunch of new episodes. I'm thinking about a bunch of things that I want to do on Sacred Symbols Plus. Quite a few interviews lined up as well, including one that I'm very excited about. I'm doing about China and the Chinese entertainment industry with someone from RAND, which is like a very serious think tank in California. In fact, Chris, you might remember they were right in Santa Monica. They had like a massive building right by the water, this like circuitous, secretive looking building. And so I'm having an actual adult man on the to talk about a real subject on Sacred Symbols Plus. And I don't know how that's going to go, because Rick comes on and talks about serious subjects, but he's one of us, right?
Yeah, sure.
I don't know, does this man know what he's getting himself into? We're going to find out, but I want to know more about what's going on over there in China with the Chinese industry and all of this. By the way, Joshua Lehman wrote into us on Patreon, and that's one of the perks you can get for supporting us over there. He says, "Hello, gentlemen. I'm a longtime fan and fairly recent patron. Just wanted to say, every time Colin has a deep gut laugh, it genuinely makes me happy. Chris, you're super funny, and Dustin is my fellow from Soft Guy. Merry Christmas, you lousy animals." Allow us to wish everyone a Merry Christmas as well. Happy New Year, and all of the rest. Now, we'll have episodes going live, of course, as we said, but we will not be able to, in time, wish you a Merry Christmas. I'm doing it right now for you.
Do it now.
Yeah. It's a preemptive Merry Christmas.
Right. I would say Happy Hanukkah as well, but Hanukkah's over. It's done. I mean, it came and went pretty quick. Kwanzaa, I've never actually known anyone that celebrated Kwanzaa. I remember when I was a kid in the early 90s, late 80s, early 90s in New York, that we were like learning about it. And I grew up in a very black area, a lot of black people. I didn't know anyone that celebrated Kwanzaa.
Yeah, me neither.
But if you're out there, enjoy that as well. I don't really understand this. They kind of got like a menorah thing going on, which is kind of cool. They got the different candles as well. So if you celebrate that, please do. Also remember merch, laststandmedia.shop. Justin McCumber wrote in and said, "All right, guys, just a quick suggestion for merch. You should sell a Sacred Symbols beanie with a little hair sticking out like Dustin does for us bald guys." Actually, Chris is doing it today. I'd add another dynamic. Perhaps it could be detachable for the weirdos with hair. Oh. That is dynamic. I don't know that we can do something like that, but I like the idea. Thank you so much for supporting us over there. We know the merch is awesome. It's premium, made in America, sourced as much as we can in America, always sourced fairly, printed, shipped from America, fair, people that are paid a good wage, all of that. It's important. So we appreciate your patience on that front. And of course, we have the logos out there in high res format in case you want to make your own. You're welcome to do
that. When I read this question at first glance, I thought it was like a little hair sticking out. And I was thinking of like alfalfa.
Oh yeah.
I was like, why would we make something that stupid? But
Little Rascals reference for all of you 90-year-olds listening to this.
Yeah. I don't know why.
It reminds me of Jiminy Glick, the amazing Martin Short character where he interviews people. He pretends he's like a fat dude, and
yeah.
It's so good, and it's so funny. Like, anyone that doesn't know Jiminy Glick, you would absolutely shit yourself if you watched this stuff. And he interviews Jerry Seinfeld once, and He asked Jerry Seinfeld if he like had a relationship with Cesar Romero when he was a kid or whatever, and he's like, well, Cesar Romero was 70 and I was 7, so it reminded me a little bit of that. Guys, go support Jiminy Glick. I mean, it's old, but go watch that stuff on YouTube. Maybe those numbers will culminate. We'll get more one day because that character is so very funny. Are you familiar, Dustin?
No,
with Jiminy
no
Glick?
idea.
Dude, you've
really
shown me
good.
some funny things, and you're definitely right. I'm telling you,
Okay,
go watch Jiminy Glick interview celebrities.
I'm putting it.
You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. You're gonna think it's so funny.
These are the most ancient references.
Wait, is this the guy that's like, if the moon was made of cheese, I'd eat it?
No. That's Harry Carey. That's,
right.
That's
okay.
That's different. That's also funny, and they used to do that on SNL. This is after that.
Right. Okay.
I don't know why I know that either. Because Harry Carey, I think, was like the Chicago Cubs commentator or something like that. I think that's where he came from. Anyway, I don't know. I don't know what we're talking about. I promise.
He interviewed Donald Trump? Is this recent?
Yeah, it's probably old.
I don't know. Anyway,
It's probably very
After
old.
the show, I suggest you get into it.
I will.
All right, let's talk about some things. Gus wrote in and said, hey, big boys, I've got a bone to pick with Colin here, and I'm interested if the two sons have any strong feelings like me. A few weeks back, you revealed that each week you completely delete the show's document to start the new one using the same document in perpetuity. Did I understand correctly? What happened to inspire this continuous Bradbury-esque deletion of LSM history? I like that. I understand using the previous doc as a template, but is it so much trouble to copy the document before clearing the previous week's record? I know we have a pseudo record through the podcast itself. Think of all the documentation lost to time now, though. I hope you consider changing your ways for the sake of those who follow us. Maybe, I don't know what that means, but I appreciate everything else, Gus. Thank you so much. Guys, does this bother you, Dustin? Does this fill you with a rage or an anger that I just delete the same document? Because the reason I do it is because I don't have to share a new document with you every time. It's just
Right.
we just go to the same cryptic Google link, and it's
Right.
there it is. And I agree that it's weird, and it is weird for me because I am such a record keeper. But at the same time, the show is the record, so I don't really have a problem with this. I was curious if you agreed.
Yeah, when you're producing as much content as us, we can't save everything, which I guess, to be fair to Gus, saving a text document wouldn't be, you don't need to get out a second hard drive for that. The only time that this bothers me, Colin, and it happened on one of our episodes that we just did that you're going to hear in the next 2 weeks.
Okay.
I'll be responding to a question, and I try to be, personal and mention the person who wrote in's name. But when I go to reference that person's name, is no longer there because Colin, as soon as the question is read, it's gone. As soon as it's read, it's gone. It's like, bro.
What's interesting is I only do that on Sacred Symbols Plus. I don't do that on Sacred Symbols.
That's true.
Yeah.
I don't know why.
It doesn't happen often.
I get into these weird rhythms where I don't understand. It's the same reason why I do all these different things in a certain order in the shower. I don't know why I do them in the order that I do them in the shower. It's just, that's the way it's settled 25 years ago or something. And then
I remember when we started doing Plus, and we would have these documents, and we would go through when we first started doing them remotely, when there was actually a document that we would both be looking at. And I remember my realization when we would read the question and then it would disappear. Like, I remember thinking, like, oh, so this is like the gauntlet, I guess. Like, I'm just supposed to just remember every single bit of his question. I thought it was like a test.
That's a fair point. I don't know what. That's a really fair point. Yeah, I guess it wasn't supposed to be a test. I never really thought about it from that perspective. I just, to me, it was like, on those shows where we're not trying to keep to a time limit, but where it's like I'm trying to keep some sort of cadence, it just reminds me of how much more I have to do. But it's, of course, completely thoughtless because it doesn't consider anyone else. So we'll rectify that. But otherwise, that's the way we do things, Gus. And I'm sorry. It really is out of just the ease of sharing one single link. And I really don't think you're missing anything. In fact, everything that is said on the show, I don't want to say that. Everything in the document is said on the show. There's a bunch of stuff in the show that's not in the document. So you have the real source, the primary source. Don't fear. I told you that earlier today. I don't want you guys to fear.
You have the ultimate record with the show.
Right. I mean, I don't remember what I'm going to say after 5 minutes later. I'm not going to remember the show. And it's going to be out there in perpetuity forever. All right. CL Squared wrote in and said, what's up, everybody? Colin, after the recent Defining Duke, so I did a Defining Duke Ultimate episode with Maddie. We talked about BioWare. You jokingly said you're starting to hate capitalism and your recent pro-union stance. on a recent Sacred Symbols. Are we starting to see the rise of Comrade Colin? Is Sacred Symbols now a communist podcast? No, but I did say that and I meant it. I feel like I'm becoming more populist. Like, there's just no doubt about it. I don't know that it's like a conservative or liberal thing. To me, it's more of like an authoritarian populist thing. And I feel like authoritarianism is creeping in many different ways. And it's not just from the right wing. I know that everyone likes to, or a lot of people like to pretend that. It's a significant authoritarianism in wokeism. And there's significant authoritarianism in Chinese corporatism and all of the rest. So I look at something like Nancy Pelosi, Speaker of the House, who makes $250,000 a year or whatever, being worth $150 million. And I wonder how that happened. And I look at Jeff Bezos and Elon Musk, who I respect a great deal. I like both of those men. I especially like Elon Musk, but somehow have multiplied their wealth 25, 30, 50, 100 times in the last 10 years. It's not acceptable. And it's broken and it's fucked up. And if you need someone like me to tell you that it's fucked up, that's fine. But I keep saying this over and over again. Race and sex and gender, these are all distractions. It is about class. And I'll keep hammering that over and over and over and over again. It's about class. And that's it. So no, am I a communist? Definitely not.
No.
I'm an American populist.
You have common sense. I think it's anybody can look at that situation and be like, how is it in any way fair that this is happening in the sense that, like, it's really easy to hate capitalism right now, especially because you have like fucking NFTs and shit just like flowing. Yeah. It's so, we'll talk about that a little bit later, but it's so easy because it's frustrating to watch, you know? And,
Definitely.
you know, there's this idea of fairness in it where, like, you know, oh, well, it's a meritocracy. Well, it's like, that's not true, obviously. Meritocracies can't exist because people control what succeeds and people are flawed. So it's inherently like not a possible thing. But I don't. It's very strange to me because I've had this kind of thing levied at me too, where it's like, oh, are you a communist now? It's like, no, what? It's just basic concern for things that are kind of going off the rails. Like, I don't see how it's really all that controversial.
Yeah, I if anything, I just think it reinvigorates my capitalistic instincts that I own a small business. I have employees, right? I put it out on the line. I have stuff, but I'm not, you know, a billionaire by any stretch of the imagination, you know? And I don't begrudge anyone their wealth and their success and their talent and all of that. It's awesome. But I do feel like it has gotten gratuitous and I want to really begin calling it out because it is fucked up. I have no love for corporations. None.
Yeah.
So that's just, it doesn't mean we don't have a hypocritical relationship with them as we continue to fund their existence. But it's like we said earlier, these things are too gray and the gradient is too complicated. And so all we can sometimes do is speak out. And I'm with the little man. If I'm forced to choose, as society is forcing us to choose between big banks and capitalistic interests and corporations and the very, very gratuitously rich or the common man, I'm just going to choose the common man every time. I mean, that's just the way it is. And I used to really, I think as I've gotten more successful and maybe gotten less scared of living on the street or not having anything, I've come to realize that maybe it's time to keep a ladder behind you and not pull it up, you know? So that's it. That's all I wanted to say. I appreciate your the kind responses though to that Defining Duke episode. It was fun to talk about.
Quick question, Colin.
Maddie. Yeah.
Can we expect that with the upcoming campaign, a Chairman Moriarty instead, something along those lines?
Yeah, sure.
The mention of Comrade Colin.
Sure.
I'm just hoping if you win, that you'll grant me the ability to be a podcaster for the cause and not to have to dig holes. That's my big thing.
You'll live in the Capitol. We'll have our very own Pyongyang style Capitol where it looks really nice.
Giant portrait.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Dustin will have his own propaganda towers.
Right.
Dude, yeah. Very good.
And fake department stores for foreigners and
this is a game you play as Defining Duke and they're the renegades trying to take us down, stuff like that.
Yeah,
something here.
Could be interesting. Like Homefront the Revolution, which took place in Philadelphia as well.
Right.
No. So let's not get it mixed up. I think we just have to be honest. I think most people are capitalists. I think we all understand the function of the market and all of this. And I fucking hate communism. And communists are fucking lame. Mass murdering losers. So let's not get it mixed up. But something's amiss right now. And as we move into 2022 on this show, and we always talk about economics and all of that, we'll continue to talk about it. And as you see the behavior of companies like Activision and Ubisoft and these others, like, oh, fuck themselves. Who cares? Fuck these companies.
Yeah.
All right. Let's see. John Barnett wrote in. We have a couple of Santa follow-ups. So as I want to remind everyone, last week we talked about Santa Claus and how I felt like, in my opinion, and I think we kind of shared the sentiment, people are just holding on too long. At some point, you kind of have to dissuade yourself. I think a lot of it is due to proximity to siblings and friends and all of that. But we have a couple of people that held on for a long time, and they wanted to write in
spoiler
with their
warning
own embarrassing stories.
For Santa, for any Santa out, spoiler warning incoming.
What?
Because the one, remember the one,
Yeah.
the guy.
But we're doing, but I see, that's what I'm saying. I'm doing you a favor.
Oh,
So
right,
don't
okay.
no spoiler warnings. I'm doing you a favor.
Yeah.
We're ripping the Band-Aid off.
If you
And
don't want to know that Santa doesn't exist, skip to this point in the.
Well, but also, if you were afraid of kind of being the one to tell, so let's say you have a wife, right? And you have a disagreement. Your kid's in second grade. You have a disagreement. The wife wants the kid to keep believing in Santa. You're like, no, let's dissuade the boy from believing in Santa. So you can't cross your wife. But here's what you might be able to do. You might be able to go to like, oh, I got to go drop something off at the post office. So you drive up, the podcast is playing. You have the timestamp picked out from when we explicitly say Santa Claus is fake, right? You're like, all right, Billy, I'm going to go in and I'm going to mail this package. I'll be back in 2 minutes. And the podcast happens to be going right into that timestamp as you go in. He hears it. You blame it on us. Everyone wins. Then Billy doesn't have to, go to clown college when he's an adult. All right. Now let's hear from the audience. John Barnett wrote in, said, hey, CDC, last week, Colin expressed confused disappointment for anyone believing in Santa as late as the 4th grade. Unfortunately, I was a believer until 5th, possibly 6th grade, and I've got the PSP to thank for that. The year is 2006. I am 7 years old in 2nd grade and desperately wanted a PSP. I had doubts about Santa thanks to my older brother's friends, but my parents must have decided I was still young enough to believe. After several pleas for a PSP for Christmas, my dad told me that they couldn't afford one, so I should just ask for something else. My parents and Santa would get me things every year. Well, imagine my surprise when I find a PSP with my name on it under the tree Christmas morning. Must have been Santa, my dad said with a shit-eating grin on his face. For the next few years, anytime fellow students had the Santa debate in class, I would always chime in and say, oh no, Santa is real, and I've got the proof. It wasn't until 6th grade when I realized that all my friends were making fun of some poor girl believing in Santa at age 11 that I stopped believing due to peer pressure. Happy holidays, you bastards. So that's John Barnett's story. Thank you, John. Daniel the Awesome also has a confession. He says, what's up, my slitterheads? Oh, I just don't like that word.
It's bad, isn't it? I told you.
From last week's conversation about Santa, I am one of those weirdo children who believed in Santa until I was in 6th grade. Here's how it happened. Every year we'd travel out of state to celebrate Christmas with my aunt and uncle. Christmas morning, we'd wake up to find presents under the tree at their house. And 10 days later, we'd come home to our house and find Christmas presents there as well. If Santa isn't real, how did I get gifts in a different state and at home in the same time? It simply was magic. I had no reason to doubt or question it. It wasn't until I discovered a pile of presents in my parents' closet when I was 12 that I had to accept what all the kids at school already knew. I still don't think I figured out how my parents did it until years later, but the illusion was shattered right then and there. It turns out my parents would hide gifts in their luggage so we wouldn't see them in the car, and then set up our presents at home before we left on our trip, while we were waiting in the car to leave. Now that I have kids of my own, I really appreciate the lengths my parents went to make Christmas special for us. Santa deniers be damned, he says. Merry Christmas. Daniel, thank you for writing in. Interesting tales here, Dustin.
Yeah.
Chris, do you have any you want to opine about this for a moment?
I think 11 and 12 is way too old.
Too old.
but
Clown college.
Yeah. Clown college. I think I don't know. Yeah, maybe there is something cute and special about it, I guess. I don't know. Like, there's just something about I can't get over the fact that you're just like teaching your kid not to trust you. Like, because I remember finding out, like, I already had my suspicions because I was thinking, like, I was living in an apartment in Yonkers. We don't have a chimney. So this guy's just like breaking into our house,
right,
which is less whimsical. I don't know what's going on. I remember thinking, like, why are we making him cookies? Like, what? I don't know, just like all these like really, which doesn't even really make sense. It's like that wouldn't disprove him, but for some reason that was like a big thing. It's like it doesn't make sense that he eats cookies. Like he's like the least healthy person in the world. He's doing all this work, and I just kind of, when I found one gift in like a closet, I was like, oh, cool. Okay, so I was right. So, and I never cared about it. I think my parents thought I believed in Santa for way longer than I actually did. But I don't know. I guess all I would say is at least today you don't. You're not still there, you know?
Sure.
Because that would be fucking.
That'd be too
best
much.
Clown college.
That would be too much.
Here's the thing. I don't think I stated my opinion on Santa last week, and so I'm going to now. The definitive statement, press release of my thoughts, and that is, I don't like Santa. If you want to do it, that's fine. But here's the thing: what I don't get about parents is that if I'm spending my hard-earned money on my kids, I want it to be from me. I want them to say, "Thanks, Dad. You got me all of these amazing things. I appreciate it." And I say, "You're welcome." Point. So, and yeah, I just some parents do the hybrid thing where they say some of the gifts are from them and some from Santa, but I don't know. I just I don't want some old, man in a red suit that breaks into people's homes getting credit for the things I've done. So, but I wasn't much of a believer when I was a kid either. I think my parents told me when I was in maybe first or second grade, I just asked them if Santa wasn't real, and they said no. And that was it. The dream was dead. But was it ever really alive? I don't know.
I like that it's just this need for that cosmic validation. Santa is just like, it's like when people, like a friend of mine would be like, hey, my car got stuck on the road. Can you pick me up? And then you go and pick him up, and he's like, oh, thank God you're here. It's like, no, thank me.
Yeah.
I'm here. God had nothing to do. God did this to you. If anything, like I came to save you, idiot.
That's a great point. It's a very Randian idea to say, and I support it, to say, like, listen, kids, I worked hard for this money. I went to the toy store and got the Cabbage Patch Kid. You fucking imbeciles. Not some.
I beat an old lady with a stick to get this G.I. Joe.
Right, exactly. I agree. I don't know why I never thought of that about the credit. Of course, of course. Oh my God, I would never want to. I wouldn't allow that. Oh, my kids aren't going to believe in Santa ever. All right, let's see. What else do we have to talk? Oh, we have one more here from John Devine, Christmas related, but a disappointing story. He says, "Merry Christmas, you filthy animals. What's your most disappointing Christmas story?" In 1996, I wanted Donkey Kong Country 3 for the SNES. Well, on Christmas morning, to my disappointment, I didn't get the game. Instead, and Chris will remember this story, of course, he says, I unwrapped a Nobody Beats the Wiz rain check for Donkey Kong Country 3. They must have been running a sale for it on Black Friday and ran out of stock. We went to the store at least once a week to see if it was available, and it never was. My parents refused to buy the game elsewhere because they had that rain check. That's an amazing story. Nobody Beats the Wiz, of course, was a awesome tri-state area electronics store, and there's actually a Seinfeld episode about it.
Yeah.
Now, I'm the Wiz. Oh, like that is such a weird episode. What do you do? Well, let me back up and ask this, Chris. Do you have a memory like of a miss on Christmas, whether game related or not, like a gift you didn't want or that was disappointing to you? Because I only really struggle with this in a few ways. I don't have that many examples of this.
Yeah, I think maybe when you're in your late teens and you kind of like the overwhelming majority of your Christmases have been pretty cool, where like you kind of get something that you were excited for, or there's like still that whimsical kind of feeling about it. When you're in your late teens, that starts to fade away because you're in a position where if you want something, chances are you've bought it for yourself, and if you really, really want something, you're not doing so well for yourself that your parents couldn't. You know what I mean? Like your parents could just get it for you. So I think maybe when I was like 19 or like maybe 20, and I had this Christmas where I just got like a robe and like some clothes, and I was like, all right, so I figured I'd reach this point at some point where like,
like you almost expect like entertainment and toys even when you're an adult.
Yeah, for some reason, I don't know what it is. It's like you're just like, maybe they did something, but it's weird. There's always a transitionary period between like you get like video games and toys and all this cool shit, and then you get clothes and then you hate it. and then you get clothes, and then you like really appreciate it. Like when I remember every Christmas for like the last couple of years, I would get like a big thing of socks, and I was like, oh, thank God, because I lost every single sock from last Christmas to now. So this is extremely convenient for me. Nobody likes going out to buy socks. It's not an adventure. It's not like a fun thing to do. It sucks.
No, you sigh as you go on Amazon and put something in your cart.
You know? Yeah. Right. You're just like, or you go to the store and you're like, these are white socks that are just slightly different than the last bunch of white socks that I got, so they're not gonna match anyway.
Like Mr. Pitt.
Yeah, like Mr. Pitt. This is a laden Seinfeld laden episode.
Definitely.
But I think that's really I don't think I ever had like a Christmas that I thought was particularly rough, or that I got something that I really hated. I think it was really just that transitionary Christmas where I realized, oh, so the fun part is kind of done. And then it just became about New Year's, where I was old enough to drink and have fun with everybody. So it didn't really matter. It was replaced with something that I would argue is a lot more enticing. So
yeah, well said. Dustin, do you have anything to add?
I don't feel like I had any Christmases where I desperately wanted something and didn't get it. I don't know if I just had proper expectations or whatever communication with my parents. I wasn't unrealistic about asking for certain things. I do have 2 instances where the gift that I wanted was not available on Christmas Day. Now it'd be the Xbox 360 and the Nintendo Wii. Particularly the 360, I was always making deals with my parents. I don't know if you guys did this, where I knew that asking for the $400 console with some games and stuff was too big of an ask for Christmas. So on my birthday in September, I said, hey, between friends and family, I have $200. Can I give this to you? And then for the other half, I get an Xbox for Christmas. And that's all I'll get. That's it. You don't have to give me anything else. And they said, sure. So that was awesome. Great. Some, moving and shaking here for Christmas gifts, but very supply constrained. And it wasn't until I think it's either late January or early February that we had one on pre-order at GameStop, but they had no idea when they were going to get one. We just happened to see one at a Target. We were just doing normal shopping. We saw one, and it's actually a fun memory now, because it was just a normal day like any other, and then suddenly it's Christmas Day again. But you have the Xbox. I remember on Christmas Day I opened no, it wasn't even a controller. I think I got Perfect Dark Zero and something else that was like a shirt or something. And so I just had this game. I was so excited to play Perfect Dark Zero, which ended up being trash. Yeah. But I remember, did you ever have that happen with either a new console or something like that? You're playing and you're like, whoa, the graphics, this is amazing. And there's like a tiny little whisper in the back of your head. It's like, this maybe it's not.
PlayStation 2 was the first. PlayStation 2 was the first time that really truly happened to me. With I really look back at the PS2 launch games, and I wonder what anyone was playing that they liked. But we were just so excited, especially because it was a DVD player. And that next fall or that next spring with the Bouncer and others, we started getting games. But it's interesting what you said, Dustin, because I used to do that combination as well. My birthday's in October. So I would often just parlay, not often, but a few times parlayed that with, and my parents were divorced. So I also had 2 different Christmases. It's one of the only advantages of coming from a divorced family. They ruined my childhood, but at least I have 2 Christmases. So so my mom specifically, I remember with the PS2, and I've noted this before, I don't mean to be redundant, but you could only buy it from GameStop that fall of 2000 if you bought it with a controller, a memory card, like a warranty and a game, and it was $500, which was way more than my mom would usually spend. So I combined my Christmas and birthday present, and that was what I got from her that year. And I remember doing that. And I did the same thing, I remember, with my dad with a stereo that I really wanted, I think in middle school, like a CD player, like a boombox kind of situation that was like more money. But I remember getting that feeling, especially when I went to Northeastern and I come home for Christmas, and getting that sinking feeling is, I remember and I appreciate it. It was really much needed, and it really makes sense. But my dad just being like, here's a few $100, for Christmas. And it's like, wow, man, it's the antithesis of the way this was. And so maybe I've talked myself into some sort of reminiscence that I understand why a child would have that nostalgia. But it also explains, Chris, why you asked, like, why are we programmed to expect things this time of year? It's because we were programmed to expect things.
No, totally.
I think we should just stop giving gifts.
In general.
Yeah, just no more gifts. All right. Let's see what else is going on here. Okay. Oh, let's get into the news. I want to begin with some sad news here, some smaller items. Ian Hetherington passed away. This is notable. People, especially in Europe, European outlets are writing about this more than American outlets, but so you can find like Push Square, Eurogamer, and others. But Ian Hetherington is an important person in the history of PlayStation because he is one of the only people that founded multiple or co-founded multiple first-party studios. And he's best known as being the co-founder of Psygnosis, which would become Studio Liverpool. And so the guys that did like Wipeout and all of that. And he also co-founded Evolution, which ended up doing MotorStorm and later on Drive Club. And I was reading actually on Push Square, I didn't know this, that his first team, Imagine Software, which was a big studio in the 80s, they did a game, Bandersnatch, which is the direct reference in the Black Mirror episode or the Black Mirror movie. So I just wanted to acknowledge his passing and wish him and his family the very best, obviously, and just acknowledge that important history with some of those British teams early in Sony's history. Psygnosis was the first team Sony acquired. That's why it was so surprising that they ever closed them down, because they went and bought them. Later on, they would acquire Incognito and others, and 989 would become a brand and all of that. I mean, none of that stuff exists anymore, but yeah, no doubt that this guy, Ian Hetherington, was there at the start. So wishing him the very best. I also wanted to give a shout out, and Joshua Tull wrote in about this. He says, "Hey, CDC, I just finished watching the Power On documentary that was released on YouTube by Xbox. While I know this is a PlayStation show, I must say that I am impressed by how candid and intriguing this nearly 4-hour experience was. Do you think PlayStation would ever be willing to create something similar, taking their fans through the history and trials and tribulations? Is there any added value to producing something like this other than maybe garnering favor with your core audience?" First of all, no, I don't expect PlayStation would do something like that.
No.
It would be super cool, especially because a lot of it would be Japanese, and that would be really fun for us to see because we're so... that sphere is so inaccessible. But no, it doesn't matter that we're a PlayStation show. We don't talk about Xbox very much on the show just to keep things neat. We have an Xbox show, but it's definitely worth pointing out that this documentary, I haven't gotten a chance to watch it yet, it's on my to-do list, is garnering amazing responses. And I'm wondering, Chris, if you've watched it and what you think of it.
Yeah, I sat through the whole thing in like one sitting. It was like surprisingly really well paced and really interesting. And I thought I knew a decent amount about Microsoft because they're no stranger to like kind of documenting their trials and tribulations, but this one was so candid and so interesting. They had like Jack Trenton on and just all these really interesting all these like really interesting perspectives and just like a very candid view of like the Red Rings and just all these like really interesting stories about how like the Windows team wouldn't let them use the operating system unless it was going to be the full OS, and the Xbox team had to break into their campus and steal the kernel from their servers in the middle of the night, which is like insane. It's super interesting to hear about this story just coming out from the bowels of this like massive tech company. It was like really cool, really candid, surprisingly honest. I did not expect to hear them talk about, the Xbox One TV thing. This is a really great documentary. Like it's shocking to me that it's free, honestly. Like a lot of work went into it. It's very stylized in the way that it's kind of conveyed to you. It really feels like something that could be like a Netflix documentary that's just there for free. I would highly recommend it to anybody who's even remotely interested in this stuff because it's surprisingly interesting. And I think I have a lot more appreciation for just the people who make these things possible. Like we don't often think about the console because we're too busy thinking about the software and the games and the dev teams making that stuff. But just hearing the stress that these people went through just to get like this piece of plastic to market is really endearing, and it makes me glad that they're still around, because there was a time, and they talk about it in the documentary, where they could have easily been just completely wiped off the face of the earth. And yeah, I don't know. It's very good. I wish Sony would do something like this, like just talk candidly about the PlayStation 3. But I don't know.
There is a documentary. I remembered this there's a documentary that came out recently that came out alongside the 25th anniversary called Bedroom to Billions, the PlayStation Revolution. It's not official Sony, but it has, let's see, in this article from Video Games Chronicle, Mark Cerny, Jim Ryan, Kojima, Phil Harrison, Jaffe is in there as well, friend of the show. Mm-hmm. I've heard that documentary is not quite as honest as
it's a little
have
fluffy.
You seen it?
I have seen it. It's good.
Okay.
It's good because, you know, a documentary, all it has to do is supply you with information that you didn't have before, and it does that. But it is a little bit more of a fluffy kind of
marketing
retelling. Like, they go. It's cutesy with some of the stuff that didn't go so well, but I think that's a good one too. I just think this one is just so much. It's so much more candid than I expected it to be, as I was watching it. Just the fact that they talk about Bill Gates just berating people is wild. I did not think that they would portray Bill Gates like that.
Yeah, but, I think it's super cool. Joshua asks in his inquiry, would Sony do this? We say probably not, but is there added value to this? Yes. I think that there's definitely added value. There's nothing, to Chris's point, there's nothing to be lost by acknowledging PS3's failure in the beginning. Because it makes the PS3 beat the Xbox 360. It won. So telling the story about how bad the PS3 was in the beginning just makes the triumph all the more impressive. You can spin it if that's what's important to you, and that's definitely what's going to be important to Sony. But I do feel like it's going to be up to, like you said, third parties to tell these stories. Often the unauthorized stuff is the best anyway. That's why I think Microsoft did it this way, because you don't want to get outflanked. And I think you'd have to be stupid to not realize that Xbox One launch was horrible for them. So you might as well acknowledge and talk about it, especially because everyone likes you now. So I think things are good. And I highly recommend people check out the Power On documentary. I'm going to do that this holiday season.
Yeah.
Guys, the Uncharted movie has a poster.
Yeah.
And people can go check it out. It's all over the place. First of all, no PlayStation branding on this poster. So I think that's interesting.
Yeah.
I think if PlayStation wanted to really be associated with this thing out front, it's obviously going to have a PlayStation Studios logo, I assume, before it. Maybe not. I don't know. But they're not drawing attention. They're not trying to draw attention to this thing in any way because they know it's going to be bad. And the thing about this movie poster, which is so shitty, is if this movie this is what's so perplexing. If this movie understands Uncharted and gets Uncharted, you are doing everything in your power to hide it. This poster, as people have pointed out, first of all, Mark Wahlberg looks like Nathan Drake more than Tom Holland in the poster.
Yep.
There's this weird background where there's a boat, a sinking, like the ship, obviously from one of the games that but it's so close to them in the background. Like it just, and they're on this foreground. It looks like shit. I don't understand even the composition of this poster. I'm so disappointed, man. Uncharted is so cool. It shouldn't be that hard to make Uncharted cool. There's no problem making Uncharted cool. This is so uncool. This is budget Uncharted. It doesn't feel right. Anyway, I'm going on and on, Chris.
It just, I remember seeing this poster and my eyes were fighting just to figure out. The very moment that I looked at it, I was like, all right, which one is Nathan? Which one is Nathan Drake?
You can only tell because he has the ring. He has the iconic ring on, right? That's like, and his holster. That's how you can tell who's who. That's it.
Right, but it's so awkward. It's such an awkward, because it just looks like they're both cosplaying the same person. They're both wearing the same exact clothes, the same exact like color clothes too. Like they don't even. I don't understand why they didn't just give him the mustache. I don't understand why they were so opposed to just giving Sully a fucking mustache. It is an awkward poster. Like I don't necessarily mind that the ship is so close. Like you can get like stylistic with like a poster. It's not necessarily supposed to be like a photograph in time, but like there are all those photos of Spider-Man like swinging, but he's like 70 miles above the city, and it's like, well, that would be a bit of a problem, Peter. But I think overall, this is, I think the biggest problem with this poster is it's just bland. It's a very bland, beige sepia tone kind of look. It's Tom Holland and Mark Wahlberg on vacation.
Yeah,
it looks like an Instagram post.
That's sort of pirate vacation.
Yeah.
Dustin, am I too negative on this?
No, I think I think temperature's just right. I was looking at this closely. It almost looks like his watch has been added on afterwards, like the lighting on the watch. I clicked on the actual image at IGN.
Yeah, you're right.
It's something about it doesn't seem right. Mark Wahlberg looks like he either like just ate a Sour Patch Kids, or he's like trying to not break a grape between his ass cheeks or something. I don't know. He's just got like this, kind of a
it looks like a paparazzi
face.
Photo. It looks like they caught him like leaving the gym.
Yeah,
he's got the one.
Yeah, he got a hand over. Yeah, with his backpack. It's bad, man. I'm gonna go see it. I will go see it, and we'll do a Sacred Symbols Plus episode about it. But I am not a believer in this. I am a believer in The Last of Us with HBO because HBO are good stewards and Neil Druckmann is involved. So we know that it will at least be true, whether or not it's well executed. From the you got to go back and listen, guys. From the get-go, I was saying there's something wrong with this movie, and obviously Tom Holland and his weird ass GQ interview was the set off the alarm bells, and that was no doubt intended to set expectations low. So we'll see what happens. But if you want to go see this poster and have a good laugh, or maybe you won't, maybe you'll think it's great. Go check it out. I had to just acknowledge this. YouTube announced that Minecraft related content on YouTube has surpassed 1 trillion views. And I don't know what else to say about that other than that's just absolutely insane. And it says if each one of these 1 trillion views were just 1 second long, that would add up to over 30,000 years. I don't know what happened to make Minecraft so big. It's so interesting. I remember being at IGN in 2012 or something, and it was too late. Like if you weren't there and you didn't chase it, I remember us chasing. We couldn't do it. I don't play Minecraft, but you can't help but respect that. And I think that was, we talk about all the acquisitions Microsoft has made. I think they've made some interesting acquisitions and some good acquisitions. Bethesda, obviously a very good acquisition to bulk themselves up. But that Mojang Minecraft acquisition, that was a good one. That was a very good
smart one.
Yeah. And I often said at that time, because it was during the PS3 era that happened, I was like, if Sony did that, they would have taken it off of everything. And I think Microsoft kind of sent us a signal in the beginning with Minecraft that no, we have a different intention, and I think it's kind of playing itself through to today. I have to also acknowledge everyone's reporting it. I have a link here to the Kotaku story, but it's everywhere. Square Enix has totally stopped selling Final Fantasy XIV, apparently. Because the Endwalker DLC is so popular. Now, Dustin, I wanted to inquire about something with you. I feel like you would know maybe a little bit more about this, although maybe my faith is unfounded. We'll see shortly. I don't understand why Square Enix, having known this was going to be a problem and having talked about it for months, still is not able to accommodate a player base. I don't understand. I know it costs a lot of money. I know it's more complicated than I think it probably is, but is it really more complicated than just saying we have to spend money to buy more servers, to buy more capacity, and hire more people? I mean, how complicated is that? If you're a corporation, and this is so weird, they're leaving so much money on the table. And we talk about this obviously in the shadow of a massive loss on the Avengers and all of that. I just think that they must be so frustrated, and I don't know how. This is a digital item. This is not a good, right? So are you confounded? Because when I was reading that, I was like, man, you guys, what are you doing?
So all I can do truly is speculate. So
of course,
take everything I say with a grain of salt here. But my best guess is that they've already seen a huge increase in players over the past, I guess over a few years now, but really, really concentrated recently. We saw a lot of the most popular WoW Twitch streamers move over to Final Fantasy. And that's really seems to be where a lot of these people are coming from. It's a great exodus from World of Warcraft. And I'm guessing that they are working daily to expand their server count to accommodate all these people. I'm guessing it's something you can't do super quickly, but you also have to balance. You don't want to spend, however, I'm guessing it's thousands, millions of dollars in order to expand your server capacity, and then a few months down the line not need that. Like you don't want to necessarily build all that for just a peak moment. So I don't know. I'm guessing it's a really hard thing to estimate as well how many people are going to be logging in with the new DLC. Particularly, I know that did they suspend all sale? Because I saw it was the complete edition, and they're suspending um the starter, the free trial in particular.
Yeah, well, remember last week they said that they were going to give precedence in the server load to people that already own it, and then people that had bought it first. And so yeah, that's already inherent in this because you can't buy it now. Does that make sense? So
that makes sense.
Yeah. So I just wanted to throw that out there. I just think that's strange. They were telegraphing for a long time that this was going to happen, so I guess we shouldn't be surprised. But I guess I didn't realize how calculated their entire approach was. When you go back and look at it, it's like, oh, okay. I mean, you were telling us this for a couple of months. You released a story and you put a blog post up and all this weird shit. So I guess I should have known. But I just wanted to throw that out there in case you're looking forward to playing Endwalker, which I know a lot of people are. Chris, let me throw this one at you. I thought this was just a weird one. Dr. Disrespect is starting a studio called the Midnight Society. I don't know how they're getting away with that because the Midnight Society, of course, is from Are You Afraid of the Dark? But I guess it's just not a trademark term. But I'm annoyed that they're calling themselves that because that's what that term reminds me of. Apparently, people from the Halo, well, first of all, Robert Bowling is a co-founder, which is crazy. And they have, I guess, people from Bungie and various Activision held studios and all of that. I'm not going to, and I think Dr. Disrespect himself, I didn't know this. I think he was a designer, wasn't he?
He made Call of Duty. He made Call of Duty maps. I think is what he used to do.
So we can judge. I mean, people are like making fun of it, but it's like he's much more of a real developer than I was when I got into the game development scene. So there's real money behind this. Robert Bowling is a real person with real games under his belt. One of the people that brought us Call of Duty, of course. And I don't know. Do you think this is interesting? I find this quite interesting because this is a tens of millions of dollars investment that this guy has come to bear and got some significant talent. I think the only reason people aren't talking about this more is because it's him, and a lot of people don't like him.
Yeah, I think that's probably the main reason. This is interesting. I mean, seeing Quinn Del Hoyo is also like somebody who's I know he's been at 343 for a while. He was pretty instrumental at getting Halo 5 playing as well as it did. So that's kind of a big get too. Like I'm not so familiar with everybody else here, but I think this is going to be definitely something interesting to keep an eye on. Granted, this is probably something that we're not going to see the fruits of for like 5 years.
Oh yeah, definitely not.
So it's kind of hard to say what our expectations could possibly be. I think it's interesting. I think it's cool. I don't care about Dr. Disrespect at all, really. So I have no bias towards or against. I hate the name though. This name sucks.
Midnight Society.
I don't
think
like
it's an awesome name. It's just it's already been taken. I mean, that's the thing that bothers
me. Well, that's what I'm saying. It's like, all right, Colin, let's you and me start a studio. Let's call it Spider-Man.
Right.
You know, it's like it sucks. It's a terrible name. It's not because it's a terrible name, but we already have a George.
You're absolutely right. I'm going to I'm going to go search for the trademarks while we're talking. I'm curious if this was ever trademarked by anyone. I'm looking in real time, going to tests, always fun. Midnight Society. There are 2 live ones and 3 dead ones. Let's see. Drew Nugent and the Midnight Society is one of the dead ones. All right, live one. Design circles. There's a logo here, 2016. This is for a logo, so this is unrelated. Midnight Society Winery in California has an active trademark on it. And yeah, they don't have a trademark on this.
Buy it.
Well,
buy it now.
Yeah, like I'm curious. Like I own my trademarks. So that's strange to me, but we'll see. Nonetheless, I wanted to bring that up to people. Saw it being talked about. A lot of people were asking me about this, so I guess I'll sound off on it. Unfortunately, there's a Mega Man live action film. It appears in early production at Netflix. So yeah, exactly. Cross yourself like a good Catholic boy. Rockman Corner, great website, wrote about it. Said in 2020, Shernin Entertainment signed a first look deal with Netflix. This meant that Netflix would become the exclusive home for Shernin's upcoming film slate. We assumed the live-action Mega Man adaptation was part of the deal. Nothing was outright confirmed at the time, though. However, we now have a better idea of where things are going. And so a production company called Supermarché has published this thing on their website, which I think they since took down, saying that they're working on a Mega Man adaptation for Netflix and Shernin. Wrote, I won't get into all the other stuff, I guess, but we don't know if this is going to happen or not. A lot of things come to fruition and on the drawing board and then are scrapped somewhere along the way. My sincere hope is that happens here. I don't understand how you would even do live action Mega Man. I think it could be cool, but it would be very expensive, and there's no way that they're going to spend the amount of money that would be necessary. Mega Man's not a big IP. Like, you could do a very compelling look at X-Men or something. The way it kind of interacts with the real people and the fake characters and all the CG and all that. It's pretty compelling. And they could do Mega Man like that with the robots, and I think it would be really cool. But they're not going to. And Mega Man has almost never been treated well outside of the games. Whether it was on Captain N, of course, back in the day, people remember that Mega Man was totally bastardized and ruined on that show, along with Simon Belmont and Kid Icarus. I mean, they were out of control on that show, fucking everything up. It was just cool that it was on at the time, but for the old schoolers out there, you'll remember Captain N. And then they did a Mega Man cartoon in the mid-90s, which is probably the closest thing we ever got to something cool. There are some cool mangas for Mega Man and some more Japanese-centric stuff. But that new cartoon, remember, they did a cartoon, I think on Cartoon Network or something. It was fucking terrible. Terrible. And what's bothering me is that even people that write about Mega Man just don't know shit about it. You know how the big media companies will make those images that they share around being like, something has happened, and it's like a story, like Tom Hanks will to star in new movie, and it's just an image of Tom Hanks, and then they link to the story or whatever. They had an image of Mega Man like linking to the story, but it was an image of Mega Man X. And I was like, this is a small thing to you guys, but it's a huge thing to us. You're not even talking about the right character or series. And this is kind of the fear I have with Mega Man. That's not Mega Man. And so do we have people responsible for this that get Mega Man? And don't they realize that the best way to do Mega Man is in anime form?
Yeah.
Don't they understand how cool that would look if they did that?
Yeah, definitely animated at the very least. The thing with Mega Man, I don't think a live action Mega Man is possible. And largely because I feel like the design of everybody would have to be stretched out in such a way that it would no longer resemble Mega Man, and it would also be very, very expensive. Because I mean, he's a chibi kind of character.
He's 4 feet. You know, he's 4 feet 4 inches tall in the game.
Yeah,
that's like so. That's also going to be weird, right? Like
he's a scary individual, right? If you think about it, that way. But I think just the style of Mega Man is so stylized and so cartoonish and so bubbly, intentionally. And I don't know how you put Tom Holland in a Mega Man suit, you know, like and make it not look completely ridiculous. It would look absolutely absurd.
I mean, he would look better than Nathan Drake, though. I mean, let's be honest. Tom Holland would be a better Mega Man than Nathan Drake.
maybe they should do a Mega Man movie based on that awful cover art.
The first one
takes place in that universe, where everything looks campy and stupid.
Yeah, I know a lot of people were interested in hearing me speak out. For those who are newer to the show or don't know, Mega Man is my favorite video game series and is the reason that I love video games. And I feel like Capcom has done really good things with Mega Man and treated it with some respect. I just think seldom does anything with it. And now everyone is chasing, as we said last week, the Witcher dollars and the Castlevania dollars on Netflix and all of that. And they're going to option everything.
Transmedia.
Right, exactly, transmedia. And they're going to option as much as they can. And I don't blame them. I just hope that they realize that Capcom is the holder of some IP that they could do some really cool shit with. And you want to know what actually is something people might roll their eyes, but you want to know something they can do a live action rendition of is Street Fighter. And if they really wanted to do something cool, like a really cool campy live action Street Fighter series, that would be a way to get your live action shit in there. But if you want to do something with Mega Man, come on, keep it animated. It's going to look unnatural as fuck, like Chris said. And I don't think people realize the scale of these characters and like how big they're supposed to be. They're not big. And I think when they don't look like that, it's going to look weird. So
just remember, Colin, if this comes out, you know who to blame. Sonic.
Oh yeah, it's a great point.
This is Sonic's fault for being successful, that film.
That's a great point.
It's like a gold rush.
That's a good point. They did do Sonic, and not they, I mean it's Sega, but that was successful. They are doing a sequel, but there are fewer fake things in that world. Like you can have a real world. You can have a real world of Mega Man too, but everyone is fake except for Dr. Light, Dr. Wily, Roll. I mean, everyone else is a robot. So you only have to fake Sonic and Tails and Knuckles. I mean, it's a lot. But Dr. Robotnik can even be a real man.
Yeah, but you can't place you can't CGI a man who is Mega, you know? I don't know how you would CGI Mega Man. Like it would be so odd, especially if he's supposed to exist alongside other people who aren't fake. You know,
they're gonna use the Iron Man tech that Marvel used to make him look acceptable. Would that work?
No. He's so uncanny. He's 4'4", like chibi, like fat proportioned, but also thin at the same time, bubbly blue man standing next to a photorealistic John Hamm or whoever the fuck they shove into this movie to accompany Mega Man on his wacky "I've been transported to the real world" adventures.
Oh man, it's in New York City. It sounds worse and worse the more you talk about it, and it's the reason why I'm not that I would ever really do it. There is one character I really want to like super serious cosplay, and it's Metalhead from G.I. Joe, which I'm gonna one day do. I really want to do that. He's like a stupid Cobra officer who has like missiles all over his body. But you never see good Mega Man cosplay. At least I have never seen it because it's not possible. And that's but you see good cosplay of a lot of other things, and that I think maybe is a good sign of what could or couldn't work. I've seen Mega Man cosplay that was very expensive that looks like shit because it's on a person, and that's going to be the the factor that holds it back. So I really hope that this just dies on the vine. I'm fairly confident it will.
Yeah,
because if they convince Netflix that this is a good idea, especially on the back of all their anime failures and shit like that, then Netflix is stupid and deserves to lose more and more money because they're not doing logical things. And
at that point, we should just pitch something to Netflix.
Sure,
you know, just for the shits and giggles. Let's just do Twin Breaker, but a show. Let's do a Twin Breaker live action series.
That would be awesome. I would love that. I'll write that. But even with the Mega Man, like I always wanted to make a third person open world gritty in quotes Mega Man remake, but even that would be stylized. I wouldn't make that real. So I don't know. There's this story that's floating around. I have the Polygon link here. I want to ask you guys, does it matter that Keanu Reeves doesn't play video games and has actually never played Cyberpunk? So apparently in an interview with, I don't know what website it was. The Verge. I think The Verge. Yeah. Reeves was asked about Cyberpunk and about playing the game. So here's the transcription of it. He says, when asked if he plays video games himself, he offers a quick, direct one-word answer, no. When asked in a follow-up, even Cyberpunk, he responds, quote, no, I've seen demonstrations, but I've never played, end quote. And now the interesting thing here is that the CEO, Adam Kaczynski of CD Projekt, told people back in the day, says, quote, yes, he played the game, but as far as I know, hasn't finished yet. So, but definitely he played the game and he loves it, end quote. Now, CD Projekt was sued, as you might recall, by their shareholders for lying about Cyberpunk. And they had just settled a couple days ago for like something like nothing, like 1.5 or $2 million, some nonsense. Now, I wonder if this is something kind of more actionable. I don't think it's that serious, but they are lying here.
Yeah.
Keanu Reeves is saying straight up he doesn't play video games, and I would be interested if they want to fuck around, just put a controller in his hand. I think you'll be able to tell if someone knows how to play a video game in about 5 seconds if you put a controller in their hand. So, Chris, does this matter in light of everything going on with Cyberpunk and CD Projekt? I don't really think they deserve any benefits of the doubt. So, in my opinion, I think this matters a great deal.
Yeah, I think it does and doesn't. I think if you're asking it from the context of, hey, just from the aspect of, does it matter that a spokesperson for a video game didn't play the video game? I would say no. Who cares? Like, whatever. Like, the actors they're paid to say things. Like, it's like you almost expect that these people don't play video games. It's like, whatever. Like, they're just cool and it's cool to see them. Whatever. But I do think that it is worth noting the fact that the CEO of CD Projekt, or whoever this guy is it the CEO?
Yeah, Adam Kaczynski's
the fact
CEO.
that he went out of his way to paint a picture that Keanu does play video games, is playing this one, and loves it, despite the fact that Keanu doesn't play video games. I do think there's something there, because that's essentially false advertising. I don't know how important it is, really, in the grand scheme of things. I don't know how fundamental hearing that Keanu Reeves likes the game would be to any real player base, and I also don't know that they leaned on that enough for it to be actionable. It's not like they put it on like the trailers or like the posters or anything. So I don't know if it's actionable, but it definitely is something that erodes trust even further from the studio, and I feel like their goodwill is really not in a good place. Well, their goodwill is at the Goodwill.
Well, that's exactly right. That's why I think it's germane to the situation because of that. I don't think people say things all the time, I think, and a lot of marketing speak and all of that. But to me, and I'll throw it to you, Dustin, if you have anything to add, to me, I just think this shows the mentality, the dishonest and disingenuous mentality of the leadership of the studio. He is straight up lying there. And it's not like some simple lie. He actually goes into the lie. It's not like they ask him and he says, yeah, he played the game. He doesn't stop there, but he says, as far as I know, he hasn't finished yet, but he definitely plays the game and he loves it. So I think Chris is right where I don't think it's actionable, and I think it's over now because they've settled, although Polish law is much more malleable and flexible with that stuff. And we've talked about that in the past as well. I just wonder if you have any thoughts on this.
I think that there's a lot of possibilities of what happened here. It could be that he's a liar. It could be that he was told that Keanu Reeves, like I imagine an email from Keanu Reeves' agent that says, oh, he's playing the game. He loves it. He hasn't finished it yet. Like they just said something like that, even though it wasn't true. Keanu Reeves didn't know. Yeah. Something like that. You know, these kinds of communications happen all over the place. So he could be lying. He could be lying under false, like not knowing that he's lying. So it's possible. But you brought up, I think it was Chris, you said about actors just acting. They don't need to know what's going on necessarily. I've always wondered that with certain voice actors, particularly when I was playing Infinite. I was thinking, does Steve Downes understand the lore of Halo? Does he, beyond anything, is he just like, here, read this in a deadpan voice and try to sound badass the whole time?
I think about that often as well. My assumption is that if you're a good actor, you're definitely engaged and involved, right? How can you just come in and read something and continue to get work and show no interest in it? I hope that's the case, but I don't know.
Yeah.
For sure. All right, let's see what else here. Sorry, I was taking a note. Oh, all right. So I just wanted to note Assassin's Creed getting a new 35-hour piece of content, March 10th, 2022. It is called Dawn of Ragnarok, if you're interested in that. There's also reporting from Video Games Chronicle and other outlets that Quantic Dream's new Star Wars game, Eclipse, which was revealed at the Game Awards, might be 3 or 4 years away, and that apparently Quantic Dream is having problems hiring, which might be one of the reasons why they put this out there because people always want to work on a Star Wars game. I think that's going to be very compelling. So just tempering our expectations there as well. Also wanted to note this is a really interesting and surprising thing. Embracer Group. We always talk about them gobbling everything up. They spent almost $3 billion buying Asmodee, which is a French board game company. They make board games, and they own a lot of significant board game IP, like Settlers of Catan and others. And they themselves, it's so interesting. I was reading about them. They very much like a studio family. They own their own teams of board game makers. And so there's some, as we were saying before, some cross-media, transmedia sort of situation brewing here. And I found it interesting. So I thought you guys might think this is weird. Embracer spent more money buying that board game company, Asmodee, than Gearbox, Saber Interactive, Aspire, Koch Media, Flying Wild Hog, Vertigo, 4A Games, Warhorse, Tarsier, Decca, and a ton of other studios combined. They spent more to buy this board game company. So we'll put a pin in it. There's not much more to say. We're not experts in this at all. I mean, Dustin,
bunch of dorks.
Yeah, definitely a bunch of dorks.
Yeah, board games, they're for dorks. Don't ask me to play Settlers of Catan or Catan, whatever. I'm not interested.
Fair enough.
Go to the comic book store, whatever. We've had enough of you.
Wow.
Go choke on a hexagon.
Whoa. I had no idea it was going to be like that.
Oh.
And finally, I wanted to just note People Can Fly, our friends over in Poland, have purchased a new studio, and it's called Incuvo. Incuvo exists already. They make VR ports. And so it looks like People Can Fly is going to be getting into the VR port situation with some of their games. Perhaps Bulletstorm in VR, who knows? But a small acquisition there nonetheless. Guys, let's get into what we're playing. And I want to start very eagerly with Chris. Logan wrote in and said, "Hello, my dudes. This is mostly geared towards Chris because I know he loves Shadow of the Colossus as much as I do, but I'd love all your thoughts on Pray for the Gods. Its surprise launched on PlayStation on Tuesday, and after being at it for a few hours, I'm personally impressed. It has the feel of Shadow of the Colossus without being a complete clone. You guys plan on giving Pray for the Gods a play? Thanks for all the content you guys make. I've been a patron for almost a year now, and it's been absolutely worth it. Thank you for writing in." Chris, I actually texted you about this because I knew you were interested in it, and I saw it just pop up, and I didn't know if you had known. But it says here in the document you've been playing, so talk to me.
Yeah, so I did not know. This was kind of shadow dropped. This was a game that I kind of had on my radar for a while. Obviously, initially when I first heard about it, it was just a 3-person team. I don't know how big the team is now, but they were hammering away at this spiritual successor to Shadow of the Colossus. And Shadow of the Colossus is one of those games where I was always confused that more people didn't copy it, because just the grand scale of that game is just so magnificent and magical and cool. It seems like a relatively easy thing to develop in the sense that you don't have to worry about all these extra enemies. You don't have to worry about populating the world with complicated AI. It just seems like something that is just very simple, and with the right leadership could make an amazing genre of game in and of itself. And it always disappointed me that we didn't have more games like Shadow of the Colossus. It's one of my favorite games of all time. Beautiful. And this game just caught my attention. It was in early access for a long time, so I made a deliberate note to just not play it until it was properly out, and then it dropped, and you told me about it, and so I picked it up. I've been playing it for a little bit. $30, so it's on the cheaper side.
Nice.
Which is good. I think it's good to get people in, especially with a game that's kind of this alluring. I like it. I think it's cool. I think it's definitely a little bit clunkier than I would have liked for a game that's been in early access for a while. It doesn't feel that separated from that first demo that I saw, which is like a little disappointing. It's definitely a lot smoother than it used to be, but just little things about, there's a grappling hook in it, but it doesn't function like a grappling hook. It's more like a zip line, and that was a little disappointing. And, just there's little nitpicks about it, but ultimately it nails this expansive loneliness and this kind of mysterious vibe. And there's like survival elements to it where the cold will do damage to you, and you have to collect different gear and different equipment. It's more of a survival game than Shadow of the Colossus is. And I think mixing those two genres together is really interesting, and it does separate it from Shadow of the Colossus enough that I want to continue playing this until I finish it properly. And as much as I do like it, though, I do have to admit, man, Shadow of the Colossus is just so incredible. And playing this and experiencing like the minor hiccups really does just remind me of just how astonishing that original game truly is, from the animation fluidity and just like the way your character moves and the way you dangle off of the hair of these massive towering beasts is just so satisfying. And I don't think this game outdoes it, but it is nice to see something like this again. And I am enjoying it, and I'm looking forward to getting deeper into it. And one thing I was really impressed by, this is random, this is the last thing I'm going to say,
No,
but
take your time.
It's a snowy map. It's like very snow driven. It's very Arctic, which already sets it apart from Shadow of the Colossus
Definitely.
visually, which I think was smart. But when you're walking through the snow, I don't know if I've ever seen more impressive physics on that regard. Like, there's something about the way your character displaces the snow as she moves through it that's really just startlingly impressive to me. It's not even necessarily that it looks real, it's that it looks, I don't know, I don't even know how to explain it. Like, I wish you guys could see what I'm trying to explain, but there's something about the way that feels that it's like really satisfying just to move through the snow just because of how dynamic your character carves through it. But it's very cool. I'm really happy that this game exists, and I'm looking forward to playing a lot more of it. I only finished the first boss, which was cool, and it was very neat, but I'm working on it. Ziva.
Cool.
Got it. My dog just barged in here.
Oh, no problem.
We
Welcome.
welcome dogs.
Welcome. Yeah, dogs are welcome here. Dustin, let's
Yes.
kick it over to you as you
Sure.
talk about what you're playing. The big PlayStation exclusive of the
big
year.
PlayStation exclusive of the year, Halo Infinite. Honestly, this past week I haven't played very much at all, just because I've been really focused on getting these extra episodes done and crunching, as we were saying earlier.
Mhm.
But in the evening, I have been carving out a little time for Halo Infinite. I think I'm getting close to the end. And what's funny, because I thought, man, this Halo game seems a little short. And I haven't been mainlining it. I've been doing random stuff. But I guess realistically, Halo games are always on the shorter side. And I know I talked about it a great deal last week, so I don't want to repeat the things I said, other than as someone who's critically thinking about games, I feel a strange conflict with this game in that it is worlds better than the last two Halo games, no doubt.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm having a fantastic time playing it. But at the same time, I feel there's parts of me that are being very critical of it, simply the fact that it exists as a Halo game and it comes with this set of expectations, right? And so I'm really trying to work through that as somewhat of a critic, not a written word critic, but someone who talks about games publicly, that I'm trying to figure out if I'm being fair in certain ways when I think about this game. Particularly, the thing that is annoying me the most is that this game has, as far as I can tell, 3 types of location. It's the open world, which is like a forested area. It's in Forerunner structure, which are pretty bland. And then there's the fake covenant, whatever they are. What are they called, Chris?
Yeah. Banished?
The Banished.
Yeah,
I think the Banished suck. They're boring. But so that's just one example of something that I'm thinking about and other stuff. But I don't know. I wanted to put that out there, that thought process of how we think about games. Obviously, what comes before the lineage is very important, but I also think it's important to judge games based on what they are and not what came before. So it's just interesting thought to think about.
Yeah.
All right. Enough Halo talk. No, we can talk about Halo all you want. All right. Guys, I've been playing a trio of games to talk about here. Persona 4 Golden, Far Cry 6. Nothing more to really say about either of those. Although I'm really enjoying both of them and continue to play those through the holiday. I've gotten to this rhythm with another game as well, where And so the other game is Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, where I'm basically waking up, going about my business, answering emails and stuff, and then I'll play Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon for like a game or two. And then I'll go work out and go about my business, eat dinner, and then I'll play Far Cry 6 after dinner. And then we'll go upstairs and go to bed, and I'll play Persona 4 in bed for a little while at night. And I've been doing that, and it's been really nice. And Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon, as Dustin had mentioned last week, is really great. It's a great game. I especially like that it's, and I don't know if you noted this, I don't remember, but how deeply customizable it is. The game acts, and actually I talked to my friend David D'Angelo over at Yacht Club. I just wanted to congratulate them on the launch of the game, and I was like, I'm not very good at it, but and it's not made by them, but they published it obviously. And he was like, oh, you got to really get into the customization and make it so it's the game that you want it to be. And when I realized, because the game is like a match 3 type game, as you said, but not really, but it's real time. Like the game moves. It's not a true roguelike, let's say, where you move, something moves, you move, something moves, you move. There's a timer, and you can actually go into the menu and make that timer slower or faster or shut it off. And I shut it off completely, and it became a turn-based game, strictly turn-based. And it is awesome when you play it that way. It removes this urgency, this Tetris-like urgency of watching things sprinkled down the screen. And I'm like, oh my God. And instead, I get to like look and examine and strategize exactly how I want to go about things. And for me, he was right. He was totally right. For me, that customization option made the game from, good and interesting, but probably not a long-term play for me, to something that I'm really excited to play each day. And what's exciting about it too, and I've unlocked the 8 main knights now, is that in going through the game, you just randomly unlock characters. So you can play the game all the way through to the end and only unlock 1 or 2 characters at a time. You have to fight them, and they appear in different places. You won't necessarily find your knight on his stage. So that's kind of cool too. And then there are optional characters there. My only complaint, and I don't know if you countered this, Dustin, in your time with it, is there's a relic store where you buy relics, and then it makes these relics available for you to find in the game themselves. They randomly pop up. But you collect this money throughout the game, which is your currency to buy those relics, but there's some sort of distortion because I just bought all the relics so quickly, and then there was nothing else for me to spend money on. So then the only other thing that's interesting is just kind of unlocking those characters. So I think that they could have done more to make the routine of playing the game a little bit better, but Shovel Knight Pocket Dungeon is nonetheless very good, very appropriately priced. I want to say it's $14.99 or $19.99, something like that, but it's really not expensive. It's very good. And along with Persona 4 Golden and Far Cry 6, I've been really enjoying it.
I'm gonna as I mentioned last week, I'm on their mailer, so they sent me a PC code, and it's been fine. It's fantastic on PC, but I bet, Colin, you're lamenting a Vita version of this, because it'd be a perfect.
Oh yeah, would be great.
So that's why I feel like I want to get it on Switch, just so I can play it when I'm in bed or whatever. This is like you're playing with Persona 4 Golden. This would be perfect for a couple rounds here and there.
Yeah, it's really good. I recommend it. I think Switch would be a great target for it. So you can play it anywhere you want. I wanted to read this before we get into the news itself, though. This is from Giovanni D'Amico. He says, "Hey, Christmas Kings, what are your plans vis-a-vis the old backlog over the holidays? Any games that you're trying to get to or through before your Game of the Year considerations? Anything that's been in the pile for months that you plan to dedicate some time to while snow is falling and things are quiet? I'm making my way through the main story in Final Fantasy XIV Endwalker on PS5, but I'm also going to dip my toe into some indies from the year: Tome, Narita Boy, and Tales of Iron, all reasonable platinums." Good question, Giovanni. Thank you for writing in. Chris, do you have any plans for the holiday season these next few weeks? Because we're going to do Game of the Year. That episode will be the week of January 10th. That'll go live like January 14th or something like that. So we have time.
Yeah. I mean, there's definitely, I know I've been neglecting Destiny pretty hard, and there's a lot of new content in Destiny right now. They're doing the 30th anniversary. They just put a bunch of Combat Evolved and like Halo weapons in it. And I'm very curious to see how that plays and how that functions. And there's like a whole new dungeon. I want to get into that, but obviously I've been preoccupied with other shooters as of recent. But I do, and I forgot to mention this. I don't know why I didn't write this into what I was playing, but I dipped my toes into Genesis Noir the other night, which is this kind of like point and click film noir jazz detective whodunit type thing, and it's presented really interestingly. It's like about like space and cosmic space time, and it's very fantastical and very cool, and the soundtrack is really awesome. And so I think I'm gonna try and jump into some games that I have been on my radar that caught my eye visually that I just didn't get a chance to for whatever reason. I know I want to play The Artful Escape. I want to finish Cyber Shadow. I really want to try Narita Boy because the art style is just so freaking striking. I can't get it out of my head. Like I think about Narita Boy once every at least once a day, and I'm scared, and I'm just scared
about Narita Boy once a day.
I'm scared to play it because I feel like it looks so good that there's no way the game plays actually as good as how it looks, and I kind of want to maintain this expectation of it in my head without soiling it, but I'm gonna get to it eventually. But yeah, there's definitely a huge backlog. I've even been thinking about, and maybe this is because of Alan Wake 2's recent announcement, but I've been thinking about kind of going back and doing a Remedy refresh and kind of going through Max Payne 1 and 2 and going through the Control DLC. Like there's a lot I want to do. We'll see how much I actually get to it, but I'll probably finish like 10% of what I want to actually do, but there's a lot on my radar right now for sure.
Lofty goals. I have lofty goals too. I'll get to them in a minute, but Dustin, I want to hear if you have any plans.
The number one game that I'd like to complete before Game of the Year, not that I think that this will be my Game of the Year, but I think it is a worthy consideration for other discussions, is Death's Door. I've been talking about playing this game for a few weeks now, but once I'm done with Halo Infinite, then I think that's the first thing I'm going to play afterwards. I'd like to go back and finish my Death Stranding playthrough as well. And the other thing that's been kind of tickling my fancy a little bit recently has been VR. Not on PlayStation VR, because unfortunately PlayStation VR has been ruined for me by playing PC and Quest VR. Like I can't go back to the wands and the camera. It's just feels so unsophisticated compared to anything else now. So I'm excited for PSVR 2, but some of these games are available on PlayStation VR. In particular, I should have mentioned this earlier. I've been playing Pistol Whip on the Quest, which is I think that's also on PSVR.
Oh, like, is that like that Guitar Hero like first person shooter type deal where it like what is right, where you shoot to the rhythm of the
right. Yeah. So it automatically guides you through this weird, it's kind of reminds me of Super Hot in that it's low poly characters, but you get more points when you shoot to the rhythm. And then you can also, it's called Pistol Whip. So you whack people and they explode. But it's really fun. It's one of those games that you have to do. I mean, you don't have to do a short play session, but for me, I have to, or I'll die because I'm out of shape. And the night that I got the game a few months ago, the first time I played it, I played for a really long time and I basically couldn't move the next day because there's a lot of squatting and you're trying to dodge bullets and stuff. And so Pistol Whip is sweet. So
good exercise.
VR, Death's Door, finish Halo, maybe go back to Death Stranding if I can fit that in.
So I have some lofty goals. They'll never be reached, of course. I'd like to continue this rhythm of keeping games going in perpetuity and have like a game I can go to at night. So I think Persona 4 is going to be that game. I'm only 25 hours in, or even a little less than that. There's a long ways to go. I think I'm like a couple weeks away from maybe doing the whole Rize thing. And then there's that, and I'm going to keep that going. I want to play Shovel Knight, but there's a series of like AAA games I kind of want to get through. So Far Cry 6, I got to bang out at some point. I really have been slow burning it and enjoying it. And I feel like I probably should just now play the game because I'm just going like around the map and like doing everything you can do with no regard for the story at all. Just getting every treasure chest, helping every person, uncovering every compound and all that. So I'm really having fun with that as I fight that with the guys. And by the way, if you think that is a too on the nose for a pronunciation, listen to the game because they say it like that.
Oh yeah, they do it all the time.
So I got to get through Far Cry 6, And then on the AAA front, in my mind, I think I'm going to go to Guardians of the Galaxy after that.
Mm-hmm.
I bought it. I bought it already, so I think that's where I want to be. Now, there's a series of kind of, I don't want to say B tier games, but there are a couple B tier games, if that's what we want to refer to them as, that I really want to get to as well. One of them just came out today, actually, Record of Lodoss War, Deedlit, and Wonder Labyrinth. This game looks fucking awesome. It's a Metroidvania. It looks absolutely glorious. It looks so much like Symphony of the Night, and I'm not a Record of Lodoss War guy. I watched the OVA from 1990 with my brother when I was a little kid, and that was kind of my exposure to it. But it's a very famous role-playing game series, like a paper and pencil role-playing game with a bunch of like other stuff going on. So I don't know anything about the story. I'm not attracted to it for that reason. It just looks so good. So again, it's called Record of Lodoss War, Deedlit in Wonder Labyrinth, if you want to check that out. And then another similar game that I want to look into is from Eternum Game Studios, and it's called Eterna Noctis. This is another Metroidvania looking game, but apparently it has more of a Dead Cells, or even maybe, I don't want to say Dark Souls, but that kind of feel where places are, the sections are more segregated, the combat is more grueling, and all of that. So I want to check that game out as well. And then there are kind of fleeting hopes, right? So Tales of Arise, I got to get back to, and I got to start from the beginning, unfortunately, because I've lost the plot, literally. Deathloop, I'm still open to getting back to it and trying again, but I think I got to start from the beginning again, because I think I'm just missing something. I also think they've increased the UI usability, which I might make the game better for me. And then sitting on my cross media bar is a game I've never played, which is Alan Wake, and that keeps staring at me as well. And I'd like to do something with Dustin on that game specifically. So, and if Chris replays it in his Remedy playthrough, maybe we can do something for that. And then I also wrote on my list just a couple of other games because I was looking at my trophies. Like, I just abandoned Biomutant. I abandoned 13 Sentinels, both pretty early, but I don't know that I'll get back to those anytime soon. I shouldn't have started Biomutant. I don't know what I was thinking, because now I have the PS4 trophies and they're going to release the PS5 version. I can't play it because I'll get the trophies again. I just can't allow that to happen to me. Thank you for writing in a very fun question to investigate, Giovanni.
Yeah.
All right, boys, let's get into the news.
Let's do it.
Some big things to talk about here, including many a Chris-centric thing, but we'll get to that shortly. We have to get to this first. Number one, Sony has acquired a new first-party team, expanding its portfolio of fully owned studios. However, it's important to calibrate your expectations. The studio in question is the Seattle-based team Valkyrie Entertainment, and they describe themselves as both, quote, a game developer and service provider, end quote, with an expertise in art production. They only have a single game, Guns Up, to their name, and otherwise have worked in a support role with Sony and elsewhere. They recently worked on Amazon's smash hit MMO New World, shooter Aliens Fireteam Elite, and first-party games for two different first parties in the same year, God of War and State of Decay, both in 2018. They also have experience in the infamous Twisted Metal and Forza franchises. While one could imagine Valkyrie joining Sony to make a game of their own, it's likely they are joining in the support role, but to be used internally. Guns Up, a Sony-published RTS which came to PS4 in 2015 and which was canceled for the beta, was poorly received, and there seems to be no demand for a new product. Instead, Valkyrie is known to be working on God of War Ragnarok on behalf of Santa Monica Studio, and similar to purchasing Nix's specifically for PC ports, it's likely Valkyrie will exist to help clear the pipeline for some other teams. That, of course, is conjecture until otherwise noted, of course. Oh, I said of course twice. Depending on how you count, Sony could have upwards of 20 teams, though I continue to count them like this: Bend, Bluepoint, Firesprite, Guerrilla, Housemarque, Insomniac, London, Media Molecule, Naughty Dog, Pixel Opus, Polyphony, San Diego, Santa Monica, Sucker Punch, and Team Asobi. So I count 15. I don't count Nix's. I don't count Malaysia or San Mateo Studios. These are all support teams.
Yeah.
So I think this is a similar pickup. I'll throw it to you first, Chris. I don't know if you have anything to say about this. I actually knew the guys at this studio. Guns Up was a pretty cool idea. It just didn't pan out at the time when they were experimenting a lot with various one-off games at XDev.
Yeah.
But in looking at the way this was announced on a Friday, and it was announced with no PlayStation blog post. It was literally announced with just Herman Hulse saying something before the weekend began. So it doesn't signal to me that they care very much, and so that signals to me I shouldn't care very much.
Yeah, no, I agree. It's hard to kind of muster up anything to say about it because the track record doesn't really show much of anything that you could kind of extrapolate on, and also they, like you said, they don't really seem to care even. So I mean, they're doing what they've been doing, which is acquiring studios at a little bit of a smaller scale than Microsoft seems to be doing, which I think is, good ultimately. Like, I do think investing in these kind of smaller support studios is a smart move. I just can't find myself being all that enthralled by this news.
No, I feel the same exact way, Dustin. I just felt like I had to put it at the top. It is a first party acquisition,
sure, yeah.
But again, nothing too exciting to say. Dustin, do you have anything to add?
The only thing I have to add is just kind of an adjacent interesting thing that I read the other day, just since we're seeing Sony buying these support teams. Most recently, before this was Nixxes, and I saw that Guerrilla put out a tweet that they said a huge shout out to our friends at Nixxes Software who helped our teams with the recent PC patches. So they have been working on patches for Horizon Zero Dawn. So that's kind of an interesting thing. And I think that it makes sense for Sony that games are taking longer and longer to make. They're going to need more support studios, whether it's for the PC initiative or just to support giant games like the new God of War. So not a lot to add other than this is a move that makes sense.
Yeah, I just think it's a good back-end move. It's not exciting. It's not glamorous. It's the 5th acquisition of the year. I think Housemarque is probably, for many people, the most exciting, although Fire Sprite's an interesting one too. And Bluepoint, of course, is a big one as well. But we have these two supplementals in Nixxes and Valkyrie, and they'll serve their purpose. And as you noted, Nixxes is already serving its purpose, because if Gaia isn't working on the Horizon PC patch, and that's good. They're working on something more important, and that's fun. All right, number 2. Here we go. What can only be described as an unusual fever dream. Ubisoft has officially revealed the existence of a new Splinter Cell game. Better yet, it's a remake of the original. A good starting point for reestablishing what was at one time the most famous Tom Clancy-related game series. Here's what you need to know. In 2002, Ubisoft released the Ubisoft Montreal-developed stealth game Tom Clancy's Splinter Cell on Xbox. It came to PlayStation 2 the following year. What followed were a litany of games. 2004's Pandora Tomorrow on PS2, 2005's Chaos Theory, also on PS2. 2010's Conviction never came to PlayStation, though Blacklist did. Launched on PlayStation 3 in 2013, it was well received. However, the series conspicuously went dark since. Now, Ubisoft Toronto, the developer of Blacklist, as well as co-developer of 2018's Far Cry 5, lead developer of the recently released Far Cry 6, and lead developer of 2020's Watch Dogs Legion, will undertake a rebuild, quote, from the ground up, using Ubisoft's own Snowdrop engine, the same engine being used to develop Avatar Frontiers of Pandora, as well as Ubisoft's upcoming Star Wars game, end quote, according to the announcement. The game's producer, Matt West, notes that, quote, the gaming public now has an even more refined palette, end quote, than they did in 2002, and thus, the game demands a remake as opposed to a mere remaster. He continues, quote, although we're still in the very earliest stages of development, what we're trying to do is make sure the spirit of the early games remain intact in all the ways that gave early Splinter Cell its identity. So, as we're building it from the ground up, we're going to update it visually, as well as some of the design elements to match player comfort and expectations. And we are going to keep it linear, like the original games, not make it open world, end quote. When we'll see the game and on what platforms remains to be seen, though it's safe to assume it'll be on PlayStation 5, no earlier than 2024. And we have a letter here from Michael Alamo who says, hey, fellas, I'm very interested to hear Chris's initial reactions to the Splinter Cell remake. Do you guys think they will implement live service elements or, God forbid, NFTs into this? Or is there a chance for a straight remake? I, for one, don't trust Ubisoft at this moment, but I'd like to be wrong. Chris, obviously everyone's thinking about you with this announcement, this unusual and quiet announcement made right before the holidays. I was surprised at the timing. I don't really know what the point of this was, but maybe they thought it was going to leak or something. But what do you think?
Yeah, I got tagged like crazy when this when this got announced. Here's what I feel. I feel like they're saying all of the right things, but it's very easy to say the right things. And I gotta be real. I don't know if I trust Ubisoft all that much right now. Yeah, they say it's a remake of the original. It's going to be a linear experience, but I mean, that doesn't necessarily mean that they can't shove NFTs into this thing. You know, I don't see, because Stalker is doing it, and that's a single player game. Like, they're doing like this weird I don't even know what the hell is going on with that.
It's like there's going to be 3 NPCs that are also available as NFTs or something.
And it's just like, I don't know, seeing that stuff seeing that stuff infiltrate single player games, especially because it took a while for us to kind of be all right, microtransactions, all right, free to play multiplayer stuff. This is just how it works. Whatever. I guess we're okay with this. But the second it goes into like single player stuff is when it starts to feel a little bit much. And I don't know. I just don't know how I feel about this. I'm excited because I love Splinter Cell and I would love a modern remake of that original game with like modern controls and all of these quality of life improvements, a better UI. Hopefully the actors come back because I feel like even the actors are a big part of that game. I'm just maybe I'm too cynical, and maybe that is a fair critique to levy against me. But I'm a lot more concerned than I am excited, even though this is something that I've wanted for a long time. I just think it's because it's modern Ubisoft. I think if this was a while ago, I don't know if I would be as concerned as I am right now. But I'm looking forward to it. Hopefully it's treated as well as it should be. But as even they said, this is way early on in development. We're not going to see this thing for a while. And given the design chops that it takes to make a good stealth game, I would anticipate that this is at least 3 years minimum out.
Well, I would certainly say so. Next gen or current gen only. And
yeah, for sure. I think next gen only. Or, well,
yeah, that's what I mean. It will be the current gen at that time. And I don't know. I'm curious about this project as well. It was heartening. It reminds me a little bit of what Dead Space or EA is doing with Dead Space, and we'll see. Maybe it'll be a very transparent situation like that. But Donut Suplex wrote into us and said, "It's a good name. Hello, lads. So Splinter Cell is finally confirmed and is being developed by Ubisoft Toronto, the fine people that brought Colin his beloved Far Cry 6 and my personal beloved Watch Dogs Legion. It's going to be a remake of the first, and Ubisoft did mention that they are going to not make this an open world game, which is good. What excited me the most is Ubisoft Toronto has shown us with Legion and Far Cry 6 that they are open to taking creative risks within established franchises. So I'm hoping they bring something new to the table while also keeping things rooted in the franchise's identity, which is something Ubisoft desperately needs. This is going to be developed on the Division 2's Snowdrop engine, which is a good pick in my opinion. This will also no doubt be next-gen only, and what better way to bring Sam back than what they did in the early 2000s and wow us again with its graphics. What are your guys' thoughts? Thank you, Donut, for writing in. Dustin, I kick it over to you. What do you think about all of this? Ubisoft Toronto getting involved. Obviously, this is a Ubisoft Montreal game originally, and not that really matters. Ubisoft's a very, very pliable series, or they are a very pliable series of studios. Also being built proprietarily on Snowdrop, that is not a huge surprise. That's going to start happening more and more. But it is interesting because Ubisoft Toronto has taken a huge veer into open world games, and so now they're going to have to tighten things up a little bit. So what are your thoughts here?
Something about this feels off to me, particularly in that, remember when they announced Beyond Good and Evil 2 and they made such a big deal about a game that they had absolutely no work done on it, which I guess that was many years ago at this point. But it just, the way that this was announced, feels like something you do better service than a blog post and a short Twitter video. It just feels weird. I don't know. I've seen some rumblings on Twitter about Ubisoft Toronto not necessarily being a great place. I think that they've had some of their leadership leave or something. So maybe this is a way just to put out a call for people to come work. Like we were saying about Star Wars, they put this out hoping to entice people to come work on Splinter Cell, a big game. But
yeah,
I think the thing which you guys kind of already emphasized was about modern day Ubisoft and how they have, let's see, and Maddie mentioned this on Twitter, and I think it was a great point. They've got 3 games currently in development hell, it sounds like, with Prince of Persia, Skull and Bones, and Beyond Good and Evil 2. And now we've got another new project that is just casually dropped out of nowhere that is very far off. And so I don't know, something about it doesn't seem quite right to me. I hope it comes out as is fantastic, but there's some red flags here.
Yeah, and honestly, part of me is a little disappointed that it's a remake. Like I love the first game, and it would be cool to see that game remastered and redone in a way that it modernizes the controls a bit, makes it, because those those stealth games, even the early Metal Gear Solids, like they don't necessarily translate all that well control wise to modern day. So it would be nice to see that, but at the same time, I was kind of hoping for a new Splinter Cell, like a proper new Splinter Cell. And even there were rumblings of an open world Splinter Cell, which, in fairness, in the context of a Ubisoft studio, that's not all that exciting. But the premise of an open world proper stealth game in the way that Metal Gear Solid 5 did it is actually super enticing. And part of me was kind of disappointed. It was like a weird balancing act, because I'm happy that it's not open world, because Ubisoft would be the ones doing the open world, and I don't like Ubisoft open world. But at the same time, the premise of a more open Splinter Cell game is kind of cool if a proper studio or another studio outside of Ubisoft could do it. That's obviously impossible. So I feel like I'm just going to have to take what I can get here. I'm glad Splinter Cell lives again. I'm glad people care about it. I'm glad that the studio seems to understand that there are iconic elements of the series that should not change. I'm happy that that sound is exactly the same. Puts a little bit of, it's a very simple detail, but something that makes me happy. And I guess we'll see more about this as news develops. I love Splinter Cell. It's a very important series to me. So I hope that, and I haven't talked about it much because there haven't been any games to talk about, but hopefully they do this right. And I think you're right, Dustin, that this is mainly, I mean, that's usually what these teasers are.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's like, hey, we're working on this, come work for us and come help us make it. 9 times out of 10, if you see a game trailer and it's just a vague CG cutscene,
right,
and it's got no day and date, it's got no release window, it's a call to action for developers to come work on something that they might be interested in. So
I just feel like this is something they could, one of their Ubisoft Presents, this is something they could close the show with.
Yeah.
You know, that it has that, we talk about the get hype moments that we're not so big on, but many people are. I feel like that would totally have blown up.
I agree. They kind of shot their load in that sense. They're like, I don't know what they could possibly, if they ever have a press conference again, I don't know what they could possibly, like, Skull and Bones is back. And like, all right,
who cares?
Cool.
Well, I think this is a safe move for them. It reminds me a lot of what Disney did with Star Wars Episode 7, where kind of just go back and remake it basically, and just let everyone know you're back, and then see what they want from there.
Yeah.
And they have a blueprint, so I think that it's going to be cheaper for them to make as well, and I think that that's probably keen for them. So we'll see. Obviously, we'll keep an eye out. Not much more to say. I'm not a Splinter Cell guy personally, so I have no insight. Number 3, a new rumor from a reliable source indicates a most likely Rockstar game may be experiencing a revival after all. According to well-known leaker Tom Henderson, who usually dwells in the Call of Duty space, though he's rife with AAA leaks of all kinds, reports something unusual. That Bully 2 isn't only real, but in some way playable. He says that it was anticipated for a possible Game Awards reveal, and some people saw it in anticipation of such. Foolishly, some journalists at Game Informer fueled the fire, with one tweeting out the game's logo, the original game's logo, and the text, "New story coming to you soon," in quotes. It seems that Bully 2 may be primed for a good old-fashioned Game Informer cover reveal, though that, of course, remains to be seen. However, the source is ironclad. Website Video Games Chronicle notes that a sequel to Bully was in development in the early aughts, but abandoned. You recall that the original Bully itself is from 15 years ago. It came to PlayStation 2 just weeks before PlayStation 3 launched in the fall of 2006. Most importantly, however, it was a very rare game from the mind of Dan Houser, who wrote and produced the Grand Theft Auto and Red Dead franchises, among others, before departing Rockstar, which he co-founded. Houser is reportedly leading a new studio called Absurd Ventures, though little else is known. As for Bully, it's hard to believe a game with such subject matter could even return in the modern environment, though. If there's one studio and one studio only that could pull it off, it's no doubt Rockstar. Chris, this is another one for you. Tom Henderson's no fool. He leaks things constantly, so he knows what's going on here. The way that they're talking about it is a little weird, because I don't know if they're talking about a full game or if they're talking about a vertical slice. I mean, making a vertical slice is not an indication of anything. So I'm a little confused about what he's saying, but Video Game Chronicle did say, I think last year, that they were, as we noted, working on a Bully 10, 12 years ago, a Bully 2, abandoned that. And there have been rumblings more recently that it could come back. This strikes me as weird, though, because it doesn't line up with Rockstar's mantra, it doesn't seem like, which is, especially through Take-Two, their owner, which is like, we make big ass very expensive games now. And going back to Bully seems like it would be like going back to Manhunt. I would love to see them do that, but it just doesn't seem like something they would do. So I'm just curious what you think of this rumor, especially as a fan of the original.
I don't know. I hope it happens. I hope it's real, because Bully is just so absurd as a concept, and I really think it could flourish in this environment if you had the right team doing it. And I do wonder if maybe that's kind of the challenge that they kind of see in Bully, is like, how do we make this game that is already kind of inherently smaller in scope than a Red Dead, than a Grand Theft Auto, because it's children, you know, and a school. How do we make that something that feels as big as Red Dead or as big as GTA? I would, if this is kind of the thing, if this was, again, Rockstar from a couple of years ago, I would be a lot more excited than I am now, just because I wonder how much effort they're really putting into single player stuff. We saw, for instance, that they're doing a story DLC for GTA Online, which is no doubt not going to have as much polish as like a new Rockstar game would. And we also lost the lead writer of a lot of those games. So it's a very curious place to be, but I do think Bully is just such an interesting premise, and I do think like just the sheer amount of material they have to work with since the original Bully is astronomical, and they could get so creative and so ridiculous with it. And just the balls to release a game about bullying right now would be amazing. And
It would be awesome. I'd love it.
I think selfishly, I just want that.
Me too.
I don't even think I necessarily need it to be good. I just need a statement from a big developer being like, "Hey, it's 2022. Here's our AAA tens of millions of dollars bullying game." It's awesome. Like, I can't help but be excited for this, and this is something that I've wanted for a while. The original Bully has not aged super well, much like a lot of those original PS2 era Rockstar titles, but I do feel like with a modern coat of paint, modern controls, even with the Rockstar kind of complaint with, you know, how modern Rockstar controls even aren't necessarily that much better than a lot of other games that exist now, I still feel like seeing that universe explored in the modern day with all of the modern accoutrements would be like really, really fun and really, really cool and really, really ballsy. And I hope it's real.
Yeah, me too. I feel like it requires a studio to not be wishy-washy. And I think that happens a lot in TV. Not a lot, but there are TV shows that are not wishy-washy. South Park's not a wishy-washy show. They're going to do whatever they want. They're going to say whatever they want. They do not care what your feedback is. The same thing with Always Sunny in Philadelphia, which we're huge fans of on this show. That's just a really immaculately written, totally perverse, amazing show. I mean, in the new season, they're doing an episode in which you find out Frank used to go to Epstein's Island, but he claims he went there just to scuba dive. You know, it's like awesome. It's good shit. And
oh my god.
And like last year they did one about like Me Too, where like they go to like a Me Too seminar and it's fucking horrifying. It's so good. And I feel like this has to be built in the same spirit. If you're going to do it, then you've got to do it. And you have to put your flame shield up and say, we're not going to listen to outside commentary on this. And I wonder, Dustin, if you agree. And I think about you too, because you guys are younger than me. This era of Rockstar reminds me a little bit more of you guys. Like, this is your era of Rockstar to me. I know that you guys played the Grand Theft Auto games when you were little, but you were little, right? This is like you kind of being around and cognizant. And so I wonder if there's any connection for you there too, Dustin, or if this is not a series or a game you care about.
I have never even seen gameplay of this game. This is totally off my radar completely, but it is, you know, a ballsy move. The thought of releasing a game about bullying. Honestly, we need to bring back bullying. This is why the Kingdom Hearts fans, who I'm a part of, aren't standing down, is because bullying is down significantly. And now, you know, the anime kids, they're out of control.
They're flourishing.
Right.
It's gone too far. I thought you were going to say something, this statistic, like bullying is down 70%.
Right. Exactly. I mean, it might be. And that's the problem. It's like the balance of the force, it's off, and now we live in the time. I don't know. Are the weebs the Sith or the Jedi? I don't know.
You know the answer to that.
Oh, we know. The thing I'm more interested overall in this story is just the nature of the leak, in that this guy from Game Informer tweeted this.
Yeah,
and then deleted it.
He did, and then someone was like, "No, that's not what he meant." I'm like, "Get fucked! Are you guys stupid?" I mean,
yeah.
Oh my god, that was so. They probably got a quick message from someone being like, "What are you doing? This is a cover." I bet. Hey, I'm not gonna bet anything, but I would be shocked if this wasn't a cover story for Game Informer.
Right. Yeah, you have to imagine that that's. I don't know. Was the guy drunk? I always wonder when some of these tweets come out. Like, what were you thinking? What state of mind were you impaired?
Well, it could be. I totally admit that I remember being a younger person in the games industry and like kind of liking to brag that I was like, oh yeah, I've got this thing coming out soon or whatever. And then some years ago, I was just like, I'd rather just be like, here's the thing. It's more exciting to just say like, here it is, than to say like, oh, something cool is coming soon. Stand by.
It's something I think you grow out of in that industry,
Definitely.
It is.
I would hope anyway.
It is funny. This is it's related and unrelated, but there's times when I will tweet something. There's an assumption that everyone in the games industry knows something also, and maybe they don't. And maybe that just is tied, since Colin, I'm on a show with you. I tweeted something about Bloodborne last night, and anytime I tweet about Bloodborne or some game I like that's not available, someone's like, what do you know? Dustin, you know something because you just tweeted a joke about Bloodborne. It's like, no, I don't. Maybe Colin does. I don't. Well, we've shared what you knew about Bloodborne, but I don't know the Twitter.
Do you like Bloodborne?
With games?
Yeah, that's why I don't tweet anymore. I don't have to deal with those people anymore. It's so grand, just
so freeing.
It really is. I'm just gonna keep recommending it to people. I just put up my posts for my content and just bail out. Don't want to. Because you can't say anything on Twitter without someone being pedantic. And there's nothing that annoys me more than people being pedantic. I hate it.
I'm announcing Bloodborne 3 today.
Holy shit.
I know. I was teasing that in my tweet about Bloodborne last night.
Crazy. Yeah.
And 4. Fuck it.
Yeah, Bloodborne 3. Bloodborne 3 is coming out. Sumo Digital.
Yeah. And it'll come out before Bloodborne 2 as well.
On Switch.
On Switch. All right. Number 4. It was only a month or so ago that we were telling you about Sony's legal threats against a third party called Dbrand, a company that was making faceplates for PlayStation 5. Sony's legal threats failed, but it's clear now why they were going after this brand, because they're making console covers of their own. Finally, we'll be able to replace PS5's white shell with new colors, including black, beginning in January of 2022. Other colors include Nova Pink, Starlight Blue, and Galactic Purple. Thankfully, the DualSense controller will now also be available in these very same colors, so you'll be able to buy official black, red, pink, blue, and purple controllers beginning in January of 2022 as well. Note that some colors and products will become available later, so not everything will be there off the bat. For instance, you'll be able to buy a Galactic Purple DualSense in January of 2022, while the covers for that of that color won't be available until mid-year at the latest. So I don't know why that is, but
weird.
All right, Sixto Rubio wrote in and said, hey, CDC, a simple question, really. PS5 colored plates, which, if any, are you picking up for yourselves? I personally am drawn to the pink, giving me that hot pink slim PS2 vibe. Dustin, let's go to you first. Are you interested in these new covers? Now, there are, of course, third-party covers. That's what we were talking about with this other brand. But these are the official Sony ones. I know that's going to mean something to people. They just patented these. This is clearly part of the plan the entire time. That was a major legal oversight. I wonder if anyone got fired for that. But are you going to get one of these new covers? Because I must say, I am attracted to the idea of having black PS5s, and I think I'm going to make my PS5s black.
Yeah, I think I'm going to get your favorite color, Colin, the purple one, because I don't know, that a nice purple console seems very appealing. I did have the idea, though, if you really want to burn your money on pieces of plastic from Sony, if you bought 2 of them of different colors, you could mix and match, and that would be pretty nice. But
or find a friend that will go in with you.
Yeah, that's right. But both, the purple, the blue, both very, very nice. The black is also, man, I love customizing and stuff like that. So I will definitely buy at least one. I will resist a second one just because the price is high, no doubt. It's high that it's annoying, but not enough to make me not buy it because I'm a moron.
Yeah.
But they're pretty cool.
My bigger concern, Chris, is just, and I get why they do this, but why can't we just get some conventional normal person colors? Like, why does it have to be sky blue or this colorful purple? Like, can't we get like some normal colors first, or have like a baseline of normal colors? It always just seems like they don't release the standard shit. Like, people want black and gray and red and like a darker blue and what, like, I don't know. That's the one thing that's always kind of mind-boggling to me. And again, serves the purpose of why Sony should just have a lab like Xbox does, where you can order these things however you want them.
Yeah. Yeah, I would love like a PS1 gray kind of cover. Like, that'd be good. But I'm with Dustin, man. Like, I like the purple a lot. I don't know why. I don't know why. I think it reminds me of the GameCube, and there was something like really aesthetically pleasing about the GameCube. I don't know what that purple is such a nice fucking color. But I think in all likelihood, I'm gonna go with the black one, just because I want. Right now, it's so loud. It's such a loud machine. You know, it just like commands attention, and not even in a way that's like, oh, Tom Holland just walked in the room and it's Tom Holland from the Uncharted film. It's more like, I don't know, like a clown.
Clowns are coming up a lot, huh? A lot of clown references today.
Yeah, there's a lot of clowning around today. But yeah, I think I'm glad that they're doing this. It reminds me of kind of back in the day. I feel like PS4 and Xbox One didn't really have a lot of this.
No, definitely not.
It was very sterile generation as far as that goes. I mean, towards the end of the Xbox generation, you had the design lab and you could like make your own controllers, and that was cool. But we didn't really have this level of customization about like accessorizing our consoles since 360, PS3 era. And I would argue PS2 is really the last time you had that in spades. But it's cool to see this returning in an official way. I think the price is absurd.
Yeah, they are.
At least $10.
So here's what. Actually, I didn't use that question. So yeah, let's stick with that for a minute. I didn't actually put that in here. People are complaining about the cost, but I think that, and actually Rob Kavazna did write in about this. He says, "Dear Sacred Boys, Sony announced some new DualSense colors and some new faceplates for the PS5. Like clockwork, the comment sections were filled with people saying they can't even get the system yet. What percentage of these comments do you think are just trolls? Certainly there are people out there that would like a PS5 and blah, 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 blah." So he's wondering if people are feeling like elitist because they can't get them. The prices are too high. Why are they doing all these things? Even me complaining about the colors. To me, I feel like this is actually a really nice move. That used to be that you had to buy a new console. And now I'm not saying that Sony is like should be applauded for this because they're still making money, but it's not the way it used to be. And the reason, by the way, Chris, that I think we got fewer cool consoles in the PS4 and Xbox One era were because games were more closely tied to products instead of just colors and visual themes. So remember like when all the N64s came out, there was a Pikachu N64, but most of them were just on their own. They were just colorful for the sake of being colorful. By the time you get to the PS4, it's like you have a red PS4 because it's Spider-Man, right? You have a black or whatever PS4 because it's Arkham Knight or whatever it might be. And I think so with the kind of, I don't know, what do you want to call it, plug and play nature of these products, I just really, really want them to allow you to make customs. I would make fucking dope custom ones with the CLS logo on them or the Sacred Symbols logos. I'd make cool controllers. I'd probably spend a shit ton of money. There are probably a ton of people that would, but it goes back to what I was saying, and I was saying this to an insider friend of mine recently, as we noted recently on the show as well. Sony just doesn't care about nickels and dimes. And that's a stupid point of view, but nonetheless, I'm looking forward to these, and just so we can get through them and then maybe get the next batch of colors. Because late in the PS4 era is when they started releasing the really cool colored controllers, like the orange controller. Remember, I got the orange controller and it was only in the Middle East for a little while, and I got the forest green controller and stuff. That's the shit. But imagine if that forest green controller was a Jets controller. Imagine if that orange controller was an Islanders controller, because I got those because that was the intention. That's about as close as I can get. Meanwhile, on Xbox, I can get an Islanders controller with the logo on it. You know? So
yeah,
get with it. And by the way, no excuses. This isn't silicon. This is plastic. Yeah. So no excuses. No excuses. All right. Number 5. The unavoidably dubious Platinum Games developed action RPG Babylon's Fall finally has a release date, and perhaps not surprisingly, it was announced quietly. Publisher Square Enix revealed that the title will come to both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5 on March 3rd, 2022. You'll recall that the game was first revealed as a PS4 console exclusive back in 2008 before conspicuously disappearing for a couple of years. When it re-emerged, it did so packing a series of playable betas, though feedback was mixed and excitement for the game seems to be tempered at best. Still, we'll have to wait and see the final product before we know for sure. Platinum Games, founded by ex-Capcom devs, released their first game, the Wii exclusive Mad World, in 2009. That same year, the studio reintroduced Bayonetta, and the following year came Vanquish, my favorite. Since then, however, Platinum has been all over the map. The team is responsible for both the Konami-published 2013 game Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance and the Nintendo Wii U game The Wonderful 101 that same year. They released 2016's disastrous Star Fox Zero on Wii U, but then launched one of the most beloved modern RPGs in 2017's Nier Automata. They are largely in Nintendo's camp these days, working on Bayonetta 3 for 2022. Likewise, their last notable game was also a Switch exclusive, 2019's Astral Chain. Dustin, I throw this one to you, obviously. We'll have to go to Chris as well, but being such a Platinum fan, specifically with Nier, I'm wondering if my conclusion that the studio is like mixed up accurate? I feel like Platinum Games has a much better reputation than it's earned. Like, it's not that those are bad games. I love Vanquish. I think Bayonetta is cool, all that. No, but they are talked about like they are cream of the crop. And in reality, they are very hit or miss. And that's why I feel like Babylon's Fall is going to be one of those swings and a miss. And by the way, this is tied to this console. I mean, it's just another one of these fart noise games, it looks like. Maybe I'm going to be wrong, but I think the beta kind of told everyone what it, very similar to Godfall or whatever. It's like, who cares? You know, so
right.
Yeah.
What do you think?
Yeah, they're all over the place, no doubt. They've worked on some real bad games, in particular the Legend of Korra. They did all these weird license games.
Yeah, they did a Transformers game, right? And a Turtles game.
The Transformers game is supposed to be pretty decent, but they also, I think, did a Turtles game. Yeah, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants in Manhattan. But the thing I think also, not just Platinum, but Square Enix at the same time, they're a company of highs and lows right now. One of their MMO is so popular, they can't sell it anymore because of server issues. Final Fantasy VII Remake, huge success, right? On the other hand, Marvel's Avengers is just not what it, I'm sure not what they were hoping it would be. And then you have this as well, which, as you said, announced quietly, mixed reception on the beta, mixed reception on just this game overall from people who have seen it, myself included. And so they're all over the map. And like you said, we're going to reserve judgment, full judgment, of course, until the game comes out. I think I don't know. If it seems disastrous, I'm not going to spend my money to check it out day one. But I don't know. It seems like they're losing their direction in some ways. Wasn't it a few years ago in 2020 they specifically said that they wanted to break away from working with publishers?
Yeah, they did.
I think it was 101, the Wonderful 101 that they published themselves outside. Were able to publish it outside of Nintendo.
Mm-hmm.
And then I'm trying to see what other stuff. World of Demons, which is
that's
an
iOS game. Yeah,
yeah.
What happened, as I recall, is like Wonderful 101 was kickstarted the remake, which to me is just strange. That sent a weird signal to me too. They're a for-hire studio that I think wants to be more than that, but their successes are with others. Nintendo owns Bayonetta 3, or at least the publishing rights to the first two Bayonettas. Obviously, Bayonetta 1 recently came out on PS4. So those games are tied up, and obviously with Astral Chain, they're going to stick with Nintendo, but the duality is existent even within their relationship with Square Enix. And I think that's what's probably confounding to Square Enix. Square got Nier from them, and Nier Automata, and then also got this. And I think they're probably like, god damn it. Yeah, you almost just don't know. I mean, Scalebound is another good example of these guys just swinging and missing. And apparently that was very much their fault. And that's kind of coming out more recently. So I don't know. I'm skeptical. I have no excitement for this. Platinum at one time, I felt like I remember actually importing Anarchy Reigns. I don't know if you remember that game, but it was a PS3 like Sega published game, and it came out in 2012. And I remember importing it. It was the game after Vanquish because we had anticipated being all over it, being like, oh my god, these guys are about to blow up. I mean, they just did Mad World, they did Bayonetta, they did Vanquish. Now they're doing Anarchy Reigns. They're doing a Metal Gear game at that time, and then like you said, it just kind of all crumbled, and they found themselves with Activision and all this other stuff. So, and Sega, I think, still owns the original Bayonetta. So I don't know what their plan is, but I wish them the very best. But I think their aspirations outpace their abilities. And in this sense anyway, I just don't know how they cobble this thing together. What's your confidence level, Chris, in Babylon's Fall?
Oh, very low. I like Platinum games, but I feel like we all saw this trailer and kind of universally felt meh about it. And I don't know. I really don't have much to say about it. I feel like I saw the trailer and I immediately forgot about it, and I didn't follow up. So I don't know I don't even know what the game is at this point.
Yeah, when we saw the beta, when it kind of reemerged, we were.
Mm-hmm.
I was kind of aghast. I was like, "Oh shit! This is what it is."
It was wildly underwhelming. Yeah. It looked so slow. That's what I remember. That's the one thing I remember. I don't remember even anything visually about it. I don't remember anything combat-wise. I don't remember how it looked or how I thought it played. All I remembered was slow. Like when I hear Babylon's Fall, the first word I think of is slow for some reason. And that's all that remains in my memory about it. I don't even know if that's accurate.
No, it is accurate.
It's been a while.
And also just very yellow slow, and brown right? And overlaid.
Yeah, very
boring.
muted.
Yeah, it's just, I don't know. We'll see.
Swing and a miss.
We'll see. March 3rd, 2022. But I think it will be. Number 6. The rumor mill is churning with Persona-related news. Here's the rub. Website Nintendo Life reports that the very same leaker who leaked the existence of the Persona 4 Arena Ultimax PS3 to PS4 port, which was announced during the Game Awards pre-show and which we talked about last week, has a new leak to share. And since he was right there, why wouldn't he be right here? This time he reports that Persona 3 Portable is receiving a multi-platform remaster. Though Atlas loves playing with exclusives, this all but confirms that PS4 has to be the target of Persona 3's port, likely alongside Switch, if the rumor is indeed true. While we have nothing else to go on, this rumor seems almost certain to come true. The leaker reliably leaked a previous game from the Persona 25th anniversary celebration that is almost certainly going to culminate with the announcement of Persona 6. And with some half dozen projects to be announced between now and then, Persona 3 becoming available to more players is a given. Released on PlayStation 2 in the West in 2007, Persona 3 launched at a time when the franchise was still very much under the radar. It wasn't until it came to PSP in the West in 2010 that many more people played it, and it's there, along with the PS2 original and the FES re-released edition, that it remains stranded. It may not be long, however. Persona, which began as a spin-off of the very long-running Shin Megami Tensei franchise, started on PS1 in 1996. The most recent core game, Persona 5, came to both PS3 and PS4 in 2016. And of course, arguably Vita's most beloved game is a 2012 re-release of Persona 4, which itself came to PS2 in 2008. So there is precedent. Should you be seeking it? Dustin, what do you think of Persona 3 Portable finally being liberated? I believe this 100%. I don't think there's any chance of this not being true because it is very weird for them to keep that game sealed away where it is.
Yeah, this sounds awesome. Persona 3, obviously, very loved game for many years, but no good way to play it. Even worse than Persona 4 Golden. Really, the best way to play it right now is either playing the portable version or playing, you can download via PS3, the FES version. But I'm wondering how they're going to do this, just in that the portable version removed the way, like, moving around was different. It was more of like a visual novel style, but it had all of the combat and stuff like that, to my understanding. I've never actually played portable. I have played some of the PS2 FES version. So this is exciting. I know that there's a lot of quality of life stuff that I think in Persona 3, you can't control your party members, to my understanding. Maybe one of them you could. So that's a huge thing that they can update. But there's a lot of Persona rumors swirling around right now. I just read last night in this Persona 4 Arena Ultimax, there's the website that's available, and apparently there was something that if you added V2 at the end, it would show a pre-order for something called the Midnight Collection. So people are speculating that this could include Persona 4 Golden or something like that.
They should re-release 1 and 2 as well. I mean, those games are even more stranded. I wonder if they would do that. There's definitely interest. I don't know if they want to. I don't even. As I said, I think last week, I remember Persona or Revelations Persona coming out and being like, I don't know what the fuck this is, and not caring. And I would be really curious to know the origins, like that, to play that teen high school horror supernatural thing, but from the PS1 era, I think would be quite charming.
One of those games just straight up has Hitler in it. Just straight up Hitler is in the game, which I think they modified him for the US version to be the Fuhrer, and they gave him aviators.
That's they just made him a motorcycle cop.
That's awesome.
Yeah, basically, it's those games. It's Persona. I'd have to confirm with someone who's played 1 and 2, but I feel like the series really got its legs with 3. That's when the style was kind of cemented with the music and the UI, stuff like that. But those first 2 games, I think they put one of them on the PlayStation Classic, if I remember correctly. So that's they gave it some light, but clearly they're interested in making money off it. They just put out the Persona 25th vinyl collection, and they had the vinyls for those first two games in there as well. So it would be cool. I'd love to see, man, if they released some kind of collection that had, I don't know, all of the Persona games, even just, I would definitely buy that. I'm sure it'd be very expensive, but
it's just one of those situations where, as we say many times, they know that they can only do that once. And so you execute on that when you really need it or when you're really ready. And I would love to see that too. There was people might remember in the PS3 era, big rumors of a Final Fantasy 1 through 10 collection that I feel like were rooted in some sort of reality, but I don't think ever came to fruition. And so I would love to see something like that too. But I think it's just one of those situations where you seal yourself off from having any reasonable way to do that again. And so you just wait. And in the meantime, you just wring everyone dry like they're doing with these records and like they're doing with these re-releases and the spin-offs and Shin Megami Tensei and all of that. So we'll keep an eye on this Persona 3 portable. I believe this rumor 100%. And I also believe, by the way, that Shin Megami Tensei 5 is going to come to PS4. I think that's going to happen soon.
Yeah.
Number 7. In a move that may have made sense several years ago, PUBG Battlegrounds, arguably the first and most certainly the first famous so-called Battle Royale game, is going free to play. Even more interesting is that this is a move that's not happening immediately. The game won't go free to play until January 12th. As noted on the PlayStation blog, PUBG launched way back in March of 2017, and it spawned a revolution with more than 14 billion hours played since then. The game came to PlayStation 4 the following year. As noted in the post in part, quote, Battlegrounds free-to-play now gives us the opportunity to expand our community even more and bring the thrills of PUBG and Battle Royale to everyone, while providing new friends and, let's be honest, more targets for our existing player base. And in many ways, going free-to-play was our natural next step. Since launch, it's always been our intention to bring the Battlegrounds to as large of an audience as possible, end quote. Players who bought the game on PlayStation will get the so-called free-to-play transition pack, a little thank you. This includes Battlegrounds Plus, which is a one-time optional purchase that will begin next year for new players that will give some perks, skins, and more. I think you're allowed to like experience quicker or level quicker and all of that. So, Chris, what do you think of this? I feel like this is too little too late. Although PUBG is still a huge game, it's just comparably speaking, this is a move that should have happened. And I remember even being on the show being surprised that it wasn't always free to play. I remember talking about that like 2 years ago, assuming that it was, but it's not.
Yeah.
Maybe it keeps the riffraff out, which there's something to be said about that. But beyond that, I don't know that there's any benefit to not being free to play. So for them. So what did you make of this move?
Yeah, I'm much in agreement with you, where I feel like it's just a bit late to be doing this. Like, this would have made sense. It would have been late if they did this 3 years ago. So the fact that they're doing it now after Fortnite has established itself so effectively, and even with the addition of new free-to-play competition in Halo and all these other games, which I guarantee I understand are two very different genres, but I think the fundamental problem with this move is that I don't know if this is going to compel anybody from playing this game over any other free-to-play Battle Royale, because in my humble opinion, PUBG plays horrifically It is not a fun game to play. It moving around sucks. The target, like the hit registration, is not satisfying. It's bland, artistically speaking. Like everything about it is just very paint by numbers and very budget. And that's cool when you consider the fact that that's kind of how it started. But at this point, they've made so much money, and they're competing with so many bigger studios at this point. The fact that it's not really been that polished or that much, the fact that it hasn't been improved all that much in the last several years is really astonishing to me. And I just don't see it winning out against all these other games that have not only have had more time to polish and evolve, but have also just had more time to establish themselves in the free-to-play market. It just doesn't. I feel like this is way too late. I'm sure they'll be fine. PUBG has a large, dedicated player base that I will never understand, and I'm sure this is going to siphon some people off, but I don't see this dethroning Fortnite at all. Like, this is just, it's a little too late for me.
Yeah, I think that this also, Dustin, and I don't know if you have anything to add, but the only thing I would add is that I think this is also within line of the initiative of expanding that universe. We brought the Callisto Protocol recently. You're going to hear about it again in a couple of episodes, which is a spin-off of the game, takes place in the future of Battlegrounds. And it's also worth noting that actually that company lost the creator recently of Battlegrounds. He left. So this seems to be like a new era. I wonder if you have anything to add.
I'm just curious if they got the cheating under control in this game. I've seen some videos of just insane people flying across the map and stuff like that. And I'm assuming that making your game free to play just opens yourself up for more. So then if someone gets banned from cheating, they'd have to buy another copy before. And now you just make a new account or whatever, unless they can do an IP ban or something like that. But I also remember this game when it came out on consoles just ran horrendously on the base ones. So I'm wondering if is there a PS5 version of this? Yeah, the PS5 native port. So
no, I don't think so. Which is wild because I was gonna say that too. I didn't get to it, but yeah, it ran so horrifically. And then you look at Fortnite, which runs fine, like perfectly fine on base consoles. And I remember when that happened, I was like, this game's just fucked in the past. I can't even be bothered to even look at this game again. Because launching in that state on console was irresponsible and egregious, but also even the polished PC experience isn't that much better. Like, it's not.
Yeah.
It's less of an eyesore, but it feels so inconsistent. I remember playing it with friends of mine and dying and not understanding that I was even fighting people.
Right. I mean, it's built off a military sim with Arma. So I don't know how much of that code is still in there, but it's got realistic bullet drop and just stuff that if you're into that, cool. But I've never particularly wanted to think about how much my bullet is going to drop when I'm sniping somebody, something like that.
I want my bullet to go where I'm pointing. Thank you.
Yeah.
Because this is a video.
Because that's what's fun. Well, I'm looking at it now on PlayStation Network. Yeah, no PS5 native version. It still costs $30, by the way. And it's on PS Now, by the way, until January 12th. So if you have PS Now, you can play it for free right now. In quotes. Number 8, announced during the Game Awards pre-show and conspicuously absent from last week's episode of Sacred Symbols because of me. Beloved sci-fi story The Expanse is getting a gaming iteration courtesy of none other than the studio Deck 9, the developers behind the recently released Life is Strange True Colors. It will launch via publisher Telltale Games and will come to both PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5. Little else is known about the game right now, other than that both its developer and publisher should tell you everything you're getting, or that what you're getting, rather, is an adventure game, heavy on narrative and light on action. The Expanse, which began on Amazon Prime in 2015 in television show format and just ran its 6th season, is based on the James S.A. Corey written novel series. That series runs 9 books, with a 10th coming in 2022, and James S.A. Corey is, of course, the pen name of 2 people, Ty Frank and Daniel Abraham. Frank himself once worked for George R.R. Martin of Game of Thrones fame and is thus attracted to equally meaty books chock full of characters and lore. It's unclear what specifically the Expanse's game will focus on, though there's much to select from. Set in the nearest future, the world of the Expanse is actually the entire solar system, where much occurs. I'm excited about this. I know I missed it last week. I didn't watch the pre-show. So Sir Deathsbank said, hey, boys, so last week I was surprised Colin didn't mention the Expanse game that was announced at the Game Awards. Just wanted to hear your thoughts on it since Colin is a fan of the TV series. Hope everyone enjoys the holidays and keep up the good work. Yeah, I heard about it. I'm excited about it. I love the Expanse. I am 2 seasons behind now. I'm also 7 books behind or something like that. So I have a long ways to go, but I love that universe and excited to see it expand into games. Number 9, as always, the NPD Group has released its monthly sales data for the United States, this time for the month of November 2021. PlayStation 5 was easily outsold by Switch for the month due to severe supply constraints that are apparently affecting Sony's sales goals, which you'll recall were already cut once due to production issues. When it comes to games, however, things get a little more interesting. The 2 best-selling games of the month in the US across platforms were Call of Duty Vanguard and Battlefield 2042. Other notable games include Guardians of the Galaxy at 7, Far Cry 6 at 8, Miles Morales at 13, Back 4 Blood at 15, and Ghost of Tsushima at 20. Looking at 2021 as a whole, Activision Blizzard owns both top spots. Call of Duty Black Ops Cold War and Call of Duty Vanguard are the 2 best-selling games of the year in the US. Other notable entries include MLB The Show 21 at 4, Resident Evil Village at 5, Battlefield 2042 is already at 6, Miles Morales at 9, and Far Cry 6 at 10. When separated by sales, so we're counting only games sold on PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, these were November's top 10 games. Call of Duty Vanguard, Battlefield 2042, Madden NFL 22, Guardians of the Galaxy, Miles Morales, FIFA 22, Far Cry 6, NBA 2K22, Ghost of Tsushima, and Back 4 Blood. And finally, number 10 is a wrap-up. Website Gamatsu reports turn-based strategy game Reverie Knights Tactics, which looks awesome, comes to PS4 on January 25th, 2022. Racing game Circuit Superstars comes to PS4 on January 27th, 2022. Skateboarding game Ollie Ollie World comes to PS4 and PS5 on February 8th, 2022. Both so-called interactive poem A Memoir Blue and JRPG Edge of Eternity come to PS4 and PS5 on February 10th, 2022. Fighting game Phantom Breaker Omnia comes to PlayStation 4 on March 15th. Destruction game Gigabash comes to PS4 and PS5 sometime later in the year. Both open-world brawler River City Girls 2 and story-driven game Afterlove EP come to PS4 and PS5 in the summer. And both Racer Redout 2 and RPG Circus Electric come to PS4 or Electric comes to PS4 and PS5 at an unknown point in 2022. Website Push Square reports fictional sports game Windjammers 2 comes to PlayStation 4 on January 20th, 2022. Political game Tropico 6 comes to PlayStation 5 on March 31st. Samurai game Trek to Yomi and artsy game Behind the Frame both come to PS4 and PS5 in the spring of 2022. Racer, Dakar Desert Rally, FPS System Shock Remake, and World War II shooter Sniper Elite 5 come to PS4 and PS5 at some point in 2022. And licensed fighting game DNF Duel from Arc System Works has been revealed for PlayStation 4 and PlayStation 5, albeit at an unknown time. We also missed one more announcement from the Game Awards. Multiplayer horror game The Texas Chainsaw Massacre is PS5 bound at a yet revealed time. All right, that's all we have for the news, boys. As tradition dictates, we end with 6 questions, comments, concerns, thoughts, and ideas from the audience at patreon.com/laststandmedia. Thank you so much for being over there. We could not do this without you. And we'll start with Ed Hamilton, who says, "Hey guys, I've recently graduated from university with a first-class degree in philosophy, and I'm currently considering my options for my first serious step into the working world. While I have a few options on the table, I can't help but be constantly enticed by the prospect of working in the games industry. However, there's only one problem. I don't know what the hell I do. I'm not a programmer, or artist, or animator. So my question is this: what job could an individual such as me do in the games industry? A non-creative who is logical and analytical while having an interest in people and their development. I, along with hopefully more people, would seriously appreciate literally any insight you could give." I don't know if you guys are going to have anything to add to this. I want to go to you in a minute, but obviously, Ed, the discipline you want to look at is production, and you specifically say you're logical and analytical, non-creative, but logical and analytical. That's exactly what a producer is, although they're often creative as well, but you'll keep the trains running on time, keep everyone organized. This is something I highly recommend, Ed, you look into if that's what you want to get into games. Most studios need producers. Even Lilymo has a producer, and they're very necessary to keep everything oiled and well moving. I'm also thinking, though, since you have a philosophy degree, you must be a reader and a writer, and so you could get into you might be more creative than you think, and perhaps you could write or do lore and world building and stuff like that. And of course, for people out there that just love video game studios need accountants. Video game studios need HR professionals. Video game studios need janitors. Video game studios need, maintenance men and technicians and secretaries. And I mean, there's a million ways you can interact with a developer. And so, Ed, I think the world is your oyster, my friend. Carpe diem. Dustin, do you have anything to say? You anything to add here?
I think you covered it. That's all I was going to add about. There's plenty of non-development jobs as well, and they're just as valid as important in my mind.
Indeed. All right, let's move on here. Liam Venetia wrote in and said, "Hi, CDC. I've been playing a game called Blue Fire on PlayStation, which uses the triangle button to go back on its menus, and it got me thinking. Why did the circle button become the default for canceling or exiting a menu screen in games? Back in the PS1 and PS2 era, it was always triangle. I'm curious into any insight you might have as to why the circle button became the de facto button of this kind of action. What was the first game you remember playing that used circle instead of triangle for this? Thanks for all the content and have a wonderful holiday season. It wasn't always triangle, but I wanted to take this question, guys, because I don't think people quite realize the sacred symbols, like what it means. And the X and the circle, specifically in Japan, cross, as it's known in Japan, right, were specifically used to select and not select, or like to go forward and cancel. Think about it. Circle, you're circling the option. X, you're Xing it out. So the big thing is that X and circle for many years, and including across consoles, were backwards. If you played it wasn't until last generation, I think, that they normalized even moving forward and backwards. They used to have, if you played a Japanese game, circle was often confirm, X was often cancel. And so that's the bigger thing that I wanted to call out. And that is the reason. It's because it's like select and not select. Chris, do you remember getting tripped up with the kind of button conventions? Because we are in a place now where there are conventions for buttons, but there was a Wild West period where people were just doing whatever they wanted. Does anything stick out to you?
Yeah, I do remember. I do remember some games had triangle as the exit button. I think Medieval is one of those, if I'm remembering correctly, where triangle was exit. Because circle was, I think, something, I can't remember what the hell. But I feel like in most games, I think circle, or if you're on Xbox, but B is always it has been for a long time back, or like, to exit out of menus. But I do remember a time when things were just like really confusing. I specifically remember playing a first-person shooter before 2001 on a console. I don't remember what the hell it was, but they were still trying to figure out movement controls because FPSs were mainly on mouse and keyboard. And I remember specifically, and this, I'll never forget this. I wish I could remember the game, but you moved forward and backwards with the left stick, but then your camera turned by turning the left stick left and right. And then your right stick would, I think, aim you up and down, but then moving the right stick left and right moved your character left and right. And it was like a really baffling, but it's especially baffling in retrospect. But even at the time, I was like, I don't know what the hell, I don't know what the hell these people are doing. But even on the PS3, when shooting a gun was R1, I remember that always felt really weird to me, because especially on the PS3, because you added a trigger. It just seemed really confusing to me that the trigger wouldn't be the gun shoot button. But there was a weird period of time. It's a lot more consolidated now.
Yeah, that's what I was gonna say. That goes into like people figuring things out on the fly. It goes back to, and Dustin, I'll throw it over to you. Driving, even in Grand Theft Auto games, was done on the X button. It wasn't until Grand Theft Auto 4 that you drove with the triggers, and you could still turn on the old control style in there, which many people did. Does anything stick out to you now that we have a more conventional control scheme as games that didn't get it right or got it right back in the day?
Yeah, things have become more universal. I still think that it annoys me how, and we're somewhat blessed in the PlayStation side with our symbols. I think the symbols are unique, and I vastly prefer them, especially because Nintendo is that your bottom button is B and your right button is A. And then Microsoft said, fuck you, we're doing the opposite. And so anyone who played a lot of Nintendo consoles and then switching over to Xbox, brain promptly died. Or if you play a lot of Xbox and then switch over to Nintendo, then the same thing. And then the even more annoying thing is that all three consoles have an X button, and they are all in a different place. I didn't realize this until sometimes when I play games with Holly, which she's a competent gamer. She's played through all of Dragon Quest 11 on her own. She plays all kinds of stuff, but it's sometimes buttons are hard for her, especially when it comes to switching around different consoles like we do in this house. And initially I was confused by it, but that was just because I have years and years of experience with these different consoles. And then I realized, I was like, you know what? It is kind of confusing to go between consoles, with there being 3 different X buttons that are in 3 different locations. So I'm happy we have the symbols. I think they're obviously the show is named after the sacred symbols. It's much more fun and exciting than ABXY.
Nintendo used to trip me the hell up because because the last Nintendo console I played like a lot before I got an original Xbox was the NES, and that only had 2 buttons.
Mm-hmm.
So I grew up kind of ABXY in the Xbox way, and then I got a Switch. And I was like, what the hell? I didn't even realize until way later that they were just like completely wrong, and it fucked me up for a while.
Yeah,
like I was, oh man, this doesn't make sense to me, and it's really weird.
I believe on Nintendo on Switch too, because your confirm button would be the right button, which would be circle, it'd be A. So there is still, because the write-in was about what your confirm button is, and Sony now is X, but I think Nintendo is keeping the old way alive.
Yeah, Nintendo is A, which is also what Xbox is, even though Xbox is A, is in a different spot. It's so weird.
God help us.
God damn it. God help us all. Maybe it's time to just stop.
Stop video games.
Stop. Yeah, let's not do any more video games.
Video games, stand down.
Ilya Staroborov wrote in and said, "Greetings, Supreme Leader Coliston. Can we quickly talk about branding in arcades? I was at a main event for a younger relative this past weekend. I had to look that up. Main event is a Chuck E. Cheese-like place. I've never heard of it. Aside from things like bowling and laser tag, they also have modern arcade machines. I noticed something peculiar. Nintendo was there with spin-offs of Luigi's Mansion and Mario Kart. Microsoft had a Halo like-on game. Sony had no presence whatsoever. Do you think it would be worthwhile for Sony to look into this? I realize that it is likely not a moneymaker, but I think exposing younger kids to your brand and characters could yield dividends later down the line. What say you guys? Have a Merry Christmas or whatever you may celebrate this season. Thank you for writing in. Chris, let's stay with you. I'm always interested in these arcades. I haven't been in many in the last few years, but every once in a while I go and I'm like, what the hell is this? There's like a Flappy Bird machine or like all this weird shit, like one-off games you never heard of before, or iOS games that are now in an arcade cabinet. It is a little peculiar that Sony doesn't want to inject its brands in some way into this environment, since he's right. I mean, little kids play these games and they see Luigi and Mario, and certainly Master Chief probably has a very adult quality for them, and they could probably get into that. What do you think about this this kind of vertical of exposure?
Yeah, I think it's smart. I do think it's cool. It's one I was actually surprised because it had been a long time since I had been in an arcade as well, and then until I moved to Burbank and one opened up by us, and I walk in and there's a Mario Kart machine with like several seats, and like you sit down and there's like a steering wheel. I was like, wow, I didn't realize that Nintendo was doing this kind of thing. And I did see, I forget what the Halo game is called, but it was like a 4-player like light gun thing, and it like, this is really cool. This is cool. And I saw a Tomb Raider thing at the one that I went to as well. So these properties and a lot of studios like Sega is very present in the arcade space as well. Like there's a lot of light gun on rails kind of Time Crisis style games that Sega puts out and throws into these arcades. And it would be cool to see Sony kind of jump into that. The only issue is I can't imagine what they would put there. Maybe like something like Wipeout I think would be awesome, but you're not going to see like, I don't think a kid is going to want to sit down in like some big chair, have it shake around while your daughter dies in your arms with like photorealistic, you know what I mean? Like it's just, I feel like the nature of Sony's games being so much more mature and very narrative focused kind of leaves them in a weird situation where they don't have a lot of room in the arcade space to really push their IP in a way that makes a ton of sense. Like it'd be really jarring to see a light gun. I think Uncharted maybe you could get away with, but then it would be like a first person game because third person arcade games don't really make sense. So it's like this. I can understand why it would be a bit of a headache for them to figure out. So I understand why they don't do it, but at the same time, I do think it's a missed opportunity, and I do think they have some properties that lend themselves well to this kind of environment. I think Wipeout is a great example of something that is not super popular right now, but if you got it in arcade cabinets, I bet a lot of people would find it a lot of fun, probably fun enough to maybe dabble in the series outside of the arcade and at home. And I don't know. There's definitely money there, even if it's not a massive amount. Especially now with like, you know, arcades are kind of dying unless they're barcades.
Yeah, I used to like barcades in San Francisco particularly. Dustin,
They're awesome.
do you have any addition to this conversation, young man?
I love these arcade spin-off things, whatever. I've always wanted to play the Halo one. It looks really cool. There's one that I played while this isn't a gaming thing. I mean, is sort of, but there's a Star Wars one that's almost like a VR. Not that you wear anything on your head. It's like a dome and it feels like VR. And man, there's so many. I think overall, Sony might have some issues, but there are a few things that I think would be really cool. Like a Ratchet and Clank game. I think you could pull off since Ratchet has his gun and stuff. Maybe something like that. This would be maybe not as work quite as well from a commercial perspective, but I could see a Returnal light gun game where you're getting different types of, there's the shotgun, there's
expose those kids to the world of Returnal.
Right. Yeah. Why not? Start them early. So I think these are cool. I would love to see that. The Luigi's Mansion one is in particularly very, very neat. But yeah, why not? Sony, do it. License it out.
It should be an arcade game where you hit Joel repeatedly with a golf club.
They can put that at Topgolf. Armando Valenzuela wrote in and said, "Gentlemen, not a question, but mostly a statement. I've been a PlayStation fan my whole life, and I've owned one since the PS2. This generation, due to the scarcity, I decided to turn to fate. So for the last few months, I've been trying to get either a PS2 or Series X, depending on which one I was able to get first through retail. About 2 weeks ago, I was able to get the Xbox retail. Now, after playing and having it for this time, I reflected on what Colin said about Xbox a few episodes back, that they are training their console owners not to buy games, and I will have to fully agree with that. Having bought Game Pass, I do not believe I will buy any game for my Xbox. For me, Game Pass will essentially become a Netflix. It's a subscription I will always have, just because the value is something I cannot pass up. And to be honest, I'm glad they have Game Pass. It's made me enjoy my first Xbox that much more." Just wanted to read that one out. We're losing people, which is fine. People can do whatever they want. But Sony's got to step up, flood the zone with more consoles. You're losing people, and get this Spartacus off the ground if that's what you guys feel will even the ground a little bit, because I agree, it's just too enticing. How can you not be enticed by that? If you're not dedicated, how can you not be enticed by it, Chris?
Yeah, I mean, it's super. I mean, it's just a good service. Like I found a lot of games. I've played a lot of games that I wouldn't have otherwise played through it, and that speaks to people. And I've actually found myself buying games too. Like I remember Celeste was a game that was on Game Pass, and I was like, oh, cool, Celeste is finally on Game Pass. I'm gonna play it. And then I remember I went through a decent chunk of it, and then I put it down, and then it got taken off Game Pass. And when I went to start it up, it was like, oh, you got to buy it now. And I was like, oh yeah, no, totally. Like, I'll buy this because I spent so much time into it, and I clearly want to play it. It's almost kind of like, I liken the Game Pass effect when something gets put on and taken off, almost like when you're really having a hard time deciding between two things that you want at a restaurant. And so you kind of like do this thing. I do this thing a lot where I take a coin and I flip, and no matter what it lands on, I know what I really wanted. You know, it's almost like if it lands on something and I'm happy. Yeah, it's like a psychological trick you play on yourself. So it's almost like this weird thing with Game Pass where if I go to play a game that I'm really excited to play because I know it was on Game Pass, and then I find out that I have to buy it, I'm way more willing to buy it than if I had never played it at all. And I do think that's a thing that's factoring into this conversation as well. It's there are definitely people who are going to rely on it as a purely Netflix-driven service machine, which I think is the overwhelming majority of people. But I do think there's this interesting kind of through line underneath it where I do think people are probably buying more games as well because
their claim.
Things
that's
cycle
Microsoft's
in
claim.
and out.
Yeah.
I experience it firsthand. So like, I don't know, like this varies person to person, obviously. But I know personally I've bought several games because I thought they were on Game Pass because they were. And I just know that I'm into it enough to want to play it. And so I spring the money for it, and you know, I'm sure that's money that probably wouldn't have gone to Cyber Shadow if I didn't have the chance to try it first, or any number of other titles. So it is interesting. I am curious to see how this experiment goes, but this is something that Sony's going to have to pay attention to, and it's something that I'm worried about Spartacus, to be honest, about, because I think we know just from the size of these companies that Sony can't compete on the same level that Microsoft is competing at. They don't have that amount of money to throw around. They can't just willy-nilly throw all of these dollars at securing exclusivity for these subscription services in the way that Microsoft can. So I think that's probably why the tiered system is there and why they're charging for back compatibility. But man, I don't know. This is gonna be a really interesting generation to keep your eye on, especially when this thing launches. All eyes are going to be on Game Pass versus Spartacus. I think even more so than Xbox versus PlayStation, and even more than console versus console. I really think that's going to be the focal point of a lot of people's conversations, because they're the really only two things that are directly competing now.
That's very well said, and we'll find out. I'm excited not because I really want the subscription service. I just want to see what it is, and
yeah, I'm really curious.
I want to see how it comports with PlayStation Plus now.
I just want back compatible
because
that's it.
That seems like it's gonna happen. And if Sony beats Microsoft to the punch of folding everything into one thing before Microsoft does, and Microsoft should have abandoned gold a long time ago. I don't even understand what the point is anymore.
Yeah.
Then I think that's a rare win for Sony in this format war. That they're winning in terms of hardware sold, but mind share, I don't know. And certainly games. I mean, Microsoft has better games this year, there's no doubt. Dustin, let's go to you with this next one. Alex Castellanos wrote in and said, Colin and crew, if I could share a thought I had while listening to last week's show, are we too harsh on companies that charge for their next-gen ports? We yell and complain that we have to pay a $10 upgrade fee, but what other medium would give us a free upgrade? When we upgraded from VHS tapes to DVDs, we would have to repurchase our favorite films, even though we already own them. Same again for Blu-rays or the dreaded HD DVD. Surely there is a cost involved in porting a game or making a game compatible. Should we be thankful that, unlike our movie collection, we don't have to pay full price to play our favorite games again? Sorry, Nintendo fans. Love the show. Now, as the co-owner and developer of owner of a developer that is putting out free versions of our games on new consoles soon, including basically a totally remade version of the game, one of the games, we're still doing that for free. And I don't see any excuse for Sucker Punch at 150 people to be charging for Iki Island, or not Iki Island DLC, but rather the PS5 port. It just seems weird to me. I don't think we're being too hard on them, and I don't think it's the same because you're not. The physical good is part of the cost of doing business. Like when you're changing from VHS to DVD, there's the whole course of manufacturing, shipping, and selling the VHS, and then shipping, manufacturing, and selling the DVD. It's just different. This is nothing like that. And yeah, so Dustin, what do you think of this?
Well, he mentions about other mediums doing this, and I feel like when Apple introduced 4K, anyone who bought stuff and there was a 4K option, they just automatically upgraded. But maybe I'm wrong about that.
Darn,
but
isn't that a shame? You know, like,
well, I feel like there is some nuance to this. We have seen developers go in and do really extensive stuff and then charge for it. And I can see a case for that in certain scenarios. But I think our criticism is really rooted in the market right now, for the quote unquote market, unfortunately, for these upgrades. Xbox is not doing this at all. Xbox is not nickel and diming everyone who bought their games, which I guess they're not buying them necessarily now. They're getting them on Game Pass.
Or are they?
Yeah, it feels, when you see the other side not doing this at all, and then Sony saying, no, we're gonna charge you for getting higher frame rates and DualSense compatibility, it feels bad. And so yeah, I'm gonna be critical from that perspective, in that this is not what your competition's doing, and it feels bad from a consumer perspective to be nickel and dimed like this, no doubt. I think the better example I was thinking of earlier is the Death Stranding upgrade to PS5. Cost $10. You got the better performance, but it also included a lot of new content as well. I feel like that was totally worth the upgrade fee.
Yeah.
But
because you're getting new content.
Right.
And that's kind of the differentiating factor here is I think this argument would make a lot more sense if PC didn't exist. But unfortunately, it's there, and you can't ignore the fact that I can go back to a game I bought in 2010, run it on my new hardware, and it runs at flawless resolutions, at flawless frame rates. It has kept up with time because that's how hardware should work. If I can run the PS4 version of a game on my PS5, that should just be the PS5 version because that's how hardware should work. That's just like, I don't know, and maybe we've been conditioned, and I think Microsoft has done a good job at conditioning that, but I also just think that's like a fair expectation. When you're running something on hardware that is better, you expect that your thing runs better. That's why you get better hardware in the first place. So I don't know. I don't think the idea that we're being too hard on them is I just find it very insane. It's insane. It's insane. $10 is ridiculous to get like a frame boost. Especially when I can go on a Series X right now and play Gears of War 2 at 60 frames per second at 4K or whatever the hell for no money at all. It's just, it looks bad, especially in consideration with all of the other competition, both PC and Xbox. Nintendo's a bit different. Nintendo's like never been performance heavy, but they also do this weird thing where they charge $60 for their games forever. So like, I don't know. Everybody has their own thing, but I just think $10 for basic performance upgrades is a little egregious, and I don't know. I stand by that, and I will stand by that for
if you're explaining, you're losing.
Yeah,
as the old political adage goes, and I think it's true here. I think just there's no reason other than nickel and diming to, and I know that the bottom line and the bean counters. I get it. I know the fiduciary obligation. I get it. But I just refuse to believe that the money made on a $10 upgrade of Ghost of Tsushima is worth the trouble. I mean, are you serious?
Yeah.
This might be a few $1,000,000, maybe. I mean, come on, man. Or just don't.
Yeah. If you wanted to do, and part of me is like, I think somebody brought this up to me. I don't remember exactly what they said, but it was along the lines of, well, they gave the multiplayer out for free, so they should be able to charge for this. I was like, I don't see how that tracks. Like, I get the sentiment in the sense that they've given enough content to justify making money from it, but that's their choice that they didn't charge for the multiplayer. You know, that was their decision, and it was a good decision because it lended to a lot of goodwill. You can't just say like, by the way, we're going to give you 60 frames now, and now you have to pay us for the multiplayer. That's not how that works. That's not how people are going to perceive it either. So it's a completely, I don't know. I had to address that because I found that ridiculous.
I mean, I appreciate it, and I just am not of this mind either. I just think it's apples and oranges to compare it to physical media. And again, we're in this perpetual state now where digital media is just going to be available. And so you have to kind of ride with the times. The commitment has been made now. And that's why I feel like the NFT thing, I don't want to bring it up again, but it's so stupid because I actually feel the real value in collectibles is going to be physical goods now because people are going to want them. Right now, it's going to go the exact opposite way. So we'll see. We'll see how it goes. But I appreciate you writing in, Alex. Finally, Gerson Mercado wrote in and said, hello, Sacred Crew. I was reading multiple impressions for Square Enix's upcoming action RPG Forspoken. Everyone seems to be a bit mixed on the overall game, but something that kept being brought up was its drab environments. What's bothersome was environments being referred to as a biome. Why do words or terms such as this become part of gamers' vocabulary only after a popular game releases? I'm almost certain Minecraft started this mostly to help differentiate the area we'll be mining initially. I could be wrong, but it does remind me of when every gamer started using gameplay loop during the PS4 generation. As always, keep up the awesome work and happy holidays. Dustin, I share Gerson's no doubt peculiar concern about the term biome. I hate it. And I used it. I'm ignorant of Minecraft. I used it for a little while because I thought that that's what they were specifically drawing out of Returnal, but then I realized that it was just being put on that game and that people are using it in other ways. Do you agree with the use of the term biome to describe an environment?
Sort of. I mean, I can only speak from my own personal impression of what it should mean. But to me, biome represents specifically outdoor environments, biodiversity or whatever. And an environment can be indoor or outdoor. But that's just the made up version of what I've thought of in my mind. When I think of, we were talking about Halo Infinite earlier. There is one biome in Halo Infinite, and it's forest, no snow, whatever.
Yeah, Pacific Northwest, like forest, green trees, Oregon.
Yeah.
Seattle.
For Returnal, I feel like environment, biome, really it just should be level. Actually, it should be neither of those. But I don't know. I don't feel too strongly. Language changes. People, the vernacular around things changes all the time. So unless something is blatantly wrong, like adventure game, then that's fine. You know, it can be environment or biome.
Well, fair enough. Chris, do you have anything to add?
Yeah, I mean, I think biome makes sense for open world games. I think
it's a good way to put it.
Like you could argue, you could argue that Ratchet and Clank has different biomes, but it really just has different levels. You know, it has different levels. It has different environments in those levels because those are sections of the game that are kind of corded off from one another. You can't transition seamlessly from one level in Ratchet and Clank to the other. And I don't mean seamlessly in the sense of like the seamless loading. Like obviously that's a thing, but I mean you can't walk from the snow into the desert gradually over time. And that is, I think, the only appropriate way to use biome. If you're talking about an open world and you're talking about, hey, here's the mountains with the snow, and then it like trails off into this swamp area, and then that swamp transitions into a desert seamlessly in the open world, then you can say this is a swamp biome, this is the tundra biome, this is the forest biome, whatever, what have you. Because that's the best way to describe it, because they're not levels. You know, you wouldn't describe sections of open world maps as levels or stages or really any other vocabulary that we've been using in game design thus far. So I think biome makes sense there. In Returnal, it's a bit of a stretch because there's obviously a transition from level to level, even though it is kind of played in this illusionary way of kind of feeling seamless. Ultimately, they're levels. Returnal has levels. I would call them stages.
Yeah. I like
really,
stages, yeah.
But you know, Returnal has different environments. They don't have different biomes because it's not open world. It's really that simple. I think that's like that should be the industry standard definition of this. I don't want to hear about Mega Man's biomes.
My God, please don't.
Okay, so don't do that shit.
The Metal Man's biome.
Leave it.
Yeah.
Oh
the
my
factory
God.
biome.
I could see that happening too because people just don't understand
I'll lose it.
what a biome is. But that, in my opinion, is the only appropriate way to use it, is in an open world setting where things obviously aren't levels or stages.
Well, fair enough. Thank you for that insight. Thank you for writing in, by the way. And thank you all out there for writing in and supporting our show, of course. That's it, boys. That's all we have for this episode of Sacred Symbols. Now, of course, the show is going to continue every week. We're moving and we got all this stuff done, as we said. So you can continue to enjoy those shows. We appreciate you, the ability to be able to entertain you over these holiday seasons when we know a lot of other people are shutting down and not doing content, which is totally reasonable and fine, but we don't want to be that way. We are a machine gun, and so we will continue onward. But I won't be recording from this point for 20 days. 20 days from now is when I'll record again. I'm going to be writing the new game in the meantime. So Chris, last thoughts before we go.
I don't know, man. I'm actually, right after this, I'm going to record my mailbag. I was supposed to do it yesterday, but I had some family thing happen. So after this is going to be the last time I record for a while as well. So I just hope everybody's having a good holiday. Much deserved time off. Much deserved rest. And we'll see you soon. We'll see you when we see you.
I'm sorry. Did you have more to say? I feel like I might have interrupted you.
No, I'm all set.
Well, fair enough.
I'm all set.
Dustin.
My parents are going to be here. I always mention my parents. They come through often, but they'll be here, of course, for
Christmas. That's their house, right? You bought it from them.
Right? I bought this house from them. But they live in Virginia. We live up here in PA, so they'll be coming up, I think, on Monday. But I'm just excited because anytime when they come visit, especially for Christmas, it's much more relaxed. We're going to see the new Matrix movie on Wednesday, which I have very low expectations, but it'll be a fun time because we'll be together. I'm just looking forward to relaxing, drinking some delicious eggnog, spending time with family. Hopefully you, the listener, are doing the same.
Indeed.
Enjoy yourself.
Indeed. Merry Christmas to everyone out there. Happy New Year. Continue to tune in. We'll see you for more episodes again throughout the weeks and be back in January. I'm going to take my 20 days now to not take them off, but write instead. So thank you all out there for your love, kindness, and support. We appreciate you. We'll see you next time for more Sacred Symbols. Until then, goodbye.
See ya.
Take care, guys.
Sacred Symbols, a PlayStation podcast, is a product and trademark of Last Stand Media and Colin's Last Stand LLC, and is proudly recorded in the USA. The show is conceived by, is written by, and is directed by me, Colin Moriarty. My co-hosts are Chris Raygun Maldonado and Dustin Furman. The show is produced by executive producer Dustin Furman. It's edited by associate producer Ben Smith. All of Last Stand's theme music is by my best friend, Ramon Narvaez. As you know, all of Last Stand shows, including Sacred Symbols, are fan-funded on Patreon at patreon.com/laststandmedia. The following names are at the producer level on Patreon, our highest tier, and we're grateful for your thoughtful and kind contributions to our independent endeavor. Thank you.